The void was supposed to be predictable. Tenno had navigated its currents for centuries, riding the quantum pathways between star systems with practiced ease. The solar rails hummed with familiar energy, and the orbiter's systems reported nominal transit conditions. Then everything changed. The dimensional fabric screamed. Reality twisted inside out as something, massive, incomprehensible, wrong, collided with the void pathway. The orbiter lurched violently, its hull shrieking as forces never meant to touch tore through its shields. Warning klaxons filled the cabin. Ordis, the ship's Cephalon AI, fragmented mid-sentence. Operator, we are experiencing catastrophic, burning, everything burning, dimensional breach. Emergency protocols. The view screen showed impossible geometry. Stars stretched into lines, then shattered into fractals. The Warframe, an Excalibur unit, its sleek biomechanical form locked in the deployment cradle, convulsed as transference connection wavered. Through the mental link, the operator felt their consciousness stretching across dimensions, pulled towards something vast and alive that permeated space itself like an ocean they were drowning in. Then came the fall. The orbiter punched through into real space with the grace of a meteor. Alarms registered atmosphere, gravity, and weapons locks from multiple directions. The view screen resolved into coherent imagery, two massive fleets engaged in furious combat. Dagger-shaped vessels exchanged emerald and crimson bolts with spherical craft deploying swarms of smaller fighters. The architecture was wrong, familiar in its military purpose but alien in every detail. Ordis to operator. Hull integrity at 63%. Unknown vessels targeting our position. This is not blood on the walls, blood on the, not the origin system. The Excalibur frame tore free from its cradle as transference snapped into full connection. The operator's consciousness flooded into the biomechanical war machine, and suddenly the young human's fragile body was replaced with refined violence-made flesh. 3 meters of hardened technocyte tissue, reinforced with orokin alloys and powered by void energy that pulsed like a second heartbeat. But something was wrong with that pulse. The void energy that normally flowed smooth as water now felt thick, resistive, like pushing through syrup. An omnipresent pressure filled every space around the frame, not hostile, but foreign. Incompatible. It wasn't trying to stop the void energy, it simply existed in the same space, and the two forces created interference like competing frequencies. Multiple targeting solutions detected. Ordis warned. Operator, we have, kill them all, approximately 12 seconds before weapons impact. Through the Warframe's enhanced senses, the operator analyzed the tactical situation with cold efficiency. The wedge-shaped vessels bore white armor and moved with military precision, coordinated, disciplined, numerous. The spherical craft fought with swarm tactics, their fighters moving in droid-like patterns. Neither side transmitted on any frequency the orbiter recognized. Neither side had ceased firing on each other, but both had now angled weapons toward the Tenno's damaged ship. A voice crackled over an audio channel, translated by the orbiter's linguistic matrix with 67% confidence. Unidentified vessel, this is the Republic Star Destroyer Resolute. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. You are in violation of. A second transmission overlapped the first, mechanical and cold, unknown craft, this is Separatist command vessel invisible hand. Surrender your technology for analysis or be destroyed. You have 10 seconds to comply. The operator made their decision in 3. The Excalibur launched from the orbiter's deployment bay as the ship's thrusters fired emergency burn, angling away from both fleets. The Warframe fell through the void of space, no arch wing, that system was still damaged, and locked onto the nearest large vessel. A Separatist frigate, its hull bristling with turrets that swiveled to track the small target. Void energy gathered despite the strange resistance, channeling through the frame systems. The operator felt the strain, what should have been effortless now required concentration, focus. The power came, but it came at cost. They triggered the Warframe's directional thrusters, built-in systems designed for exactly this kind of zero-gravity combat, and rocketed toward the frigate as point defense cannons opened fire. The galaxy far, far away was about to learn what a Tenno could do. Crimson bolts, plasma, the Warframe sensors identified, superheated gas magnetically contained, lanced through space. The Excalibur twisted with inhuman grace, movements too fluid for machinery, too precise for biology. Each rotation positioned the frame's shields to deflect rather than absorb, conserving energy. The distance closed, 1,000 meters, 500, 200. The frigate's hull rushed up to meet the Warframe. Magnetic contact. The Excalibur's hands locked onto the metal surface as its feet found purchase against the hull. For a moment, the operator allowed themselves to process the strangeness of this vessel. The architecture was crude compared to Orokin design, but functional. Effective. The metal beneath their fingers hummed with different energy signatures than anything in the Origin system. Then the hull plating 20 meters to the left exploded outward as something cut through from inside. A boarding party. But not human. For mechanical figures, humanoid in shape but clearly synthetic, emerged from the breach carrying weapons that resembled, but weren't quite, the plasma rifles the operator recognized. Their optical sensors locked onto the Excalibur immediately. B-1 battle droids, Order supplied through the transference link, his systems already parsing local communications and databases with frightening speed despite his damage. Obsolete by local standards but numerous. Operator, I'm detecting, make them scream, I'm detecting encrypted transmissions suggesting both fleets believe we're a new superweapon. This is disadvantageous. The droids opened fire. The Excalibur moved. What followed wasn't a fight, it was a demonstration. The Warframe launched forward, closing 30 meters in a blink. The first droid's head separated from its body before its targeting computer registered movement. The second attempted to track with its rifle. The Excalibur's hand caught the weapon, crushed it, and drove the droid backward into the hull hard enough to crumple its chassis. The third and fourth fired simultaneously. The Warframe twisted between the bolts with movements that defied the galaxy's understanding of combat, then drew the scanner blade from its back. The weapon was simple, a straight sword, single-edged, approximately 1 meter long. Its edge gleamed with molecular sharpness, Orokin metallurgy that could cut through ship hulls with enough force behind it. The Excalibur channeled void energy into the blade, fighting the strange resistance again, feeling the power flow but at reduced efficiency, and the sword's edge began to glow with blue-white light. 2 cuts. 2 droids became scrap. But now the entire frigate knew something was on its hull. The operator felt the shift in the ship's systems as more forces mobilized, as the vessel began evasive maneuvers that would shake loose any normal border. The Excalibur's feet mag-locked harder, and the Warframe scanned the hull for entry points. There, a maintenance hatch, sealed but vulnerable. The scanner plunged into the seam and leveraged upward. Metal shrieked. The hatch tore free, revealing a dark access corridor lit by red emergency lighting. The Excalibur dropped inside, and for the first time since arriving in this strange galaxy, the operator allowed themselves a moment of certainty. They were Tenno. They had fought the sentients, ended the Orokin Empire, and balanced the Origin system for centuries. Whatever this place was, whatever these Republic and Separatist forces represented, the operator would survive. They would adapt. They would find a way home. The corridor ahead filled with more battle droids, their mechanical voices overlapping. Intruder detected. Intruder detected. Engage. Engage. The Excalibur raised its blade and began to move. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. Behind the Warframe, the corridor began to fill with the sound of tearing metal and synthesized screaming. Aboard the Republic Star Destroyer Resolute, Jedi General Anakin Skywalker watched the tactical display with growing confusion. The unknown craft had deployed a single combatant, one figure, that was now cutting through a Separatist frigate like a thermal detonator through tissue paper. What is that thing? Commander Cody asked, his clone trooper armor reflecting the bridge's blue lighting. Anakin reached out through the Force, trying to sense the unknown warrior. What he felt made his breath catch. Not darkness, he'd felt the cold malevolence of the Sith. Not light, this wasn't the warm presence of fellow Jedi. This was something else entirely. Something that felt like a hole in reality itself, a space where the Force should be but instead there was only howling absence. I don't know, Anakin admitted quietly. But I don't think it's on anyone's side. The frigate's interior was a maze of industrial corridors and exposed conduits, functional design that prioritized efficiency over aesthetics. The Excalibur moved through it like a hunting predator, each step calculated, each turn analyzed. Through the transference link, the operator processed combat data with calm detachment even as their physical body, hidden somewhere in the damaged orbiter, remained motionless in the somatic link chamber. Battle droids poured from every junction. B1 units, the operator had already catalogued their specifications, were designed for overwhelming numerical superiority rather than individual capability. Their reaction times averaged 0.3 seconds. Their weapons fired at predictable intervals. Their coordination protocols created easily exploitable patterns. The Tenno had fought the Griner for centuries. These droids were barely more challenging. The Scanna sang through the air, its void-enhanced edge parting metal like water. The Excalibur's movements were pure efficiency, no wasted motion, no flourish, just the mathematical certainty of violence. A sidestep placed two droids in each other's line of fire. A blade thrust penetrated 3 chassis simultaneously. A backhand strike sent a mechanical head ricocheting down the corridor to disable 2 more units with kinetic impact. Operator, I'm intercepting local communications, Ordis reported, his voice stabilizing as his fragmented personality matrix compensated for damage. The Separatist fleet is designating you as unidentified biological weapon. The Republic fleet is broadcasting warnings about unknown force-sensitive hostile. Both sides are attempting to vector additional forces to your position. The operator processed this while the Excalibur ducked under a plasma bolt and drove the Scanna through a droid's central processor. Force-sensitive. That term kept appearing in the local transmissions. Something related to the strange energy permeating this galaxy, the presence that made void channeling feel like pushing through water. A heavier droid appeared ahead, bulkier chassis, reinforced plating, a rotary cannon that began spinning up. B2 Super Battle Droid, the operator's tactical overlay identified. The Excalibur raised its left hand, and despite the interference, despite the strain, void energy answered the call. The air rippled. Reality bent. The fundamental forces governing this universe momentarily gave way to the quantum chaos of the void. The super battle droid lifted off its feet, suspended in a sphere of impossible physics, its weapons suddenly firing at random as its targeting system struggled to compensate for having no stable reference frame. The Excalibur's radial blind ability pulsed outward, a burst of concentrated light and disorienting energy that overloaded every optical sensor in a 20-meter radius. The remaining droids staggered, their coordination broken. The super battle droid, still suspended, began to compress as void energy increased pressure from all sides. Metal groaned. Circuits sparked. Then the droid crumpled like paper and dropped to the deck as the operator released the effect. But the effort cost more than it should have. The operator felt the strain through transference, a dull ache behind their eyes, a sensation of pushing against invisible resistance. In the Origin system, that same ability would have been effortless. Here, every use of void power required active concentration. Ordis, analysis, the operator commanded silently through the neural link. Why is void manipulation encountering resistance? Processing. Operator, I believe we've encountered a universe with fundamentally different dimensional physics. The energy field these locals call the Force appears to be a life energy phenomenon permeating all matter. It's not hostile to void energy, but they occupy similar dimensional space. Think of it as beautiful carnage, as 2 quantum states attempting to exist simultaneously. The interference is mutual. That explained the strange sensation every Force user would feel when sensing the Warframe. The operator wasn't using the Force, but they also weren't entirely separate from it. They existed in a liminal space, neither light nor dark, neither present nor absent. A blind spot in the galaxy's fundamental nature. The Excalibur reached the frigate's central systems corridor. Ahead, a blast door sealed the path to engineering. The operator evaluated options, cut through with the scanner, possible but time-consuming. Use void energy to tear it open, possible but expensive given the interference. Find an alternate route. The decision was made for them. The blast door exploded inward with a concussive force that sent shrapnel flying. Through the smoke stepped a figure in flowing brown robes, a cylinder of metal held in one hand. As the operator watched, a blade of pure blue plasma extended from that cylinder with a distinctive snap hiss that the Warframe sensors registered as both thermal and electromagnetic energy. A lightsaber. The operator's cultural database, compiled from intercepted transmissions, supplied the term instantly. And the being holding it, male, humanoid, younger features marked by confidence and aggression, matched descriptions of a Jedi Knight. "I don't know what you are," the Jedi said, his voice carrying authority despite his youth, "but this ends now. Stand down, or I'll cut you down." The Excalibur regarded him with impassive silence. The Warframe had no face to express emotion, no voice to issue threats. It simply existed, a perfect instrument of war wrapped in the body of something that had once been human but was now so much more, and so much less. Through the Force, Anakin Skywalker felt nothing from the armored figure before him. Not the aggressive darkness of a Sith. Not the disciplined serenity of a Jedi. Not even the chaotic emotions of a living being. Where this warrior stood, the Force seemed to slide off like water from oil, creating a sensation that made Anakin's instincts scream danger even as his senses reported no threat signature. "Last chance," Anakin warned, shifting into Form V's opening stance, Gem-So, the aggressive counterattack form that had served him well against countless opponents. The Excalibur drew a second weapon. Not the scanner, this was something else entirely. A Lex Prime pistol, its Baroque design and mechanical precision a testament to Orokin craftsmanship. The handgun was preposterously large by most species standards, chambered for rounds that could punch through light vehicle armor. The Warframe held it with casual ease in its left hand while the scanner remained ready in its right. Anakin's eyes widened. "You really want to do this?" The operator's response was to fire. The Lex Prime's report was thunderous in the enclosed corridor. The round, a depleted uranium penetrator core wrapped in specialized alloys, crossed the distance in a fraction of a second. Anakin's lightsaber snapped up in a defensive arc, his Force-enhanced reflexes barely fast enough. The blade intercepted the round, and for a moment the Jedi expected the projectile to simply vaporize against the plasma edge. Instead, the round fragmented. The lightsaber's heat caused the outer casing to explode, but the penetrator core deflected at an angle, gouging a chunk from the corridor wall before embedding itself in a support beam. The sheer kinetic force of the impact sent vibrations up Anakin's arm. That wasn't a blaster bolt that could be easily deflected. That was solid matter moving at supersonic velocity. "Okay," Anakin breathed. "That's new." The Excalibur moved. What followed was unlike any duel Anakin Skywalker had experienced. The armored warrior fought with absolute economy, no wasted movement, no telegraphed attacks, no emotional investment in the combat. The scanner blade came in at angles designed to bypass lightsaber guards, targeting joints and weak points with surgical precision. The Lex Prime fired in calculated bursts, each shot timed to force Anakin's lightsaber out of position. Anakin gave ground, his Form V technique struggling to find purchase against an opponent who showed no aggression to counter, no fear to exploit. The Force warned him of danger, but the warnings felt muted, distorted, as if the very presence of this warrior dampened his connection to the living energy of the universe. The Excalibur's blade locked against Anakin's lightsaber. For a moment, they stood in a test of strength, Jedi versus Warframe, Force versus Void. The lightsaber's plasma edge carved into the Scanna's molecular blade, but the Orokin metal refused to yield, its structure reinforced by energies that didn't belong in this galaxy. Then the Excalibur executed a move that defied Anakin's understanding of combat. The Warframe released the blade lock, dropped into a crouch that no human spine should allow, and swept Anakin's legs with a kick that carried the force of a speeder collision. The Jedi went airborne, his connection to the Force the only thing that kept him from crashing into the deck in a heap. He landed in a roll, came up with his lightsaber ready, and found himself staring down the barrel of the Lex Prime from 3 meters away. The Excalibur stood in perfect firing stance, the Scanna sheathed, the pistol aimed with mechanical certainty at Anakin's center mass. "Wait," Anakin said, raising his free hand. "Just, wait." The Excalibur didn't fire. The operator, calculating behind those impassive optics, recognized a tactical opportunity. This Jedi had information. Had context. Had answers about where the orbiter had emerged and how to find a way back to the origin system. "You're not with the Separatists," Anakin continued, his mind racing. "You're not with us either. You just appeared. Didn't you? Through that dimensional breach our sensors detected." Silence from the Warframe. But the weapon didn't fire. "I'm Anakin Skywalker, Jedi Knight of the Galactic Republic," he said slowly, making the words as non-threatening as possible. "If you can understand me, lower your weapon. We can talk. Figure out what you are and where you came from." The Excalibur's head tilted fractionally, the first gesture the Warframe had made that suggested something beyond pure combat programming. Behind those optics, the operator made their decision. The Lex Prime lowered. Not holstered, but no longer aimed at Anakin's heart. Anakin released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Thank you. Now, can you speak? Do you understand basic?" The Warframe's head turned fractionally toward a comm panel on the corridor wall. Its free hand moved with blinding speed, interfacing with the panel's controls in a way that made Anakin realize this warrior was far more than just a skilled fighter. The panel's screen flickered, then displayed text in heavily accented but comprehensible basic. Tenno. Dimensional displacement. Origin system coordinates unavailable. Require navigational data. Alternative, immediate departure from conflict zone. Anakin read the words twice. Tenno. That's what you are. And you're not from this galaxy. Confirmed. The Force, Anakin hesitated, trying to find words for what he felt. You're not connected to it, are you? You're something else entirely. Void energy. Incompatible with local dimensional physics. Interference mutual. That explained the strange sensation. This Tenno, this warrior, operated on principles that existed outside the fundamental nature of the Star Wars galaxy. No wonder every Force user would find them disturbing. "Listen," Anakin said carefully. "I don't know how you got here, but both the Republic and the Separatists are going to want to either capture or destroy you. That ship of yours," he gestured vaguely toward space, "it's broadcasting unknown technology signatures that have every sensor operator in both fleets convinced you're some kind of superweapon. If you want to survive, you need allies." The Excalibur remained motionless for 3 seconds. Then new text appeared. Proposition, Alliance Parameters. The negotiations, if they could be called that, took place in the wreckage-strewn corridor of a Separatist frigate while two fleets continued to tear each other apart in the void beyond. Anakin Skywalker had conducted diplomatic missions in stranger circumstances, but not by much. "The Republic isn't perfect," Anakin admitted, his lightsaber deactivated but still held ready. "We're fighting a war against the Separatists, systems that want to break away from the galactic government. It's complicated. Political. But the Separatists are using droid armies to conquer planets, enslave populations, and consolidate power under corporate control." The Excalibur's head tilted fractionally as the operator processed this through the cultural framework of the origin system. Corporations using automated armies to enforce economic hegemony while a centralized government claimed moral authority. The parallels to the Corpus and the Griner Empire were uncomfortably close. New text appeared on the commandeered comm panel: Jedi Order. Force users. Peacekeepers or enforcers? Anakin's jaw tightened. Peacekeepers. We serve the Republic, yes, but we're supposed to be guardians of justice, not soldiers. Though lately, he trailed off, unwilling to voice the doubts that had been growing in his mind about the Jedi's role in this endless war. Supposed to be. Discrepancy noted. Look, I don't expect you to trust us immediately, Anakin continued. But the Jedi Council, the leaders of our order, they have resources, knowledge, and the best chance of helping you understand how you got here. Maybe even helping you get home. Master Yoda has lived for 900 years. If anyone can make sense of your void energy, it's him. The operator considered this proposition with clinical detachment. The Jedi represented authority and structure, not dissimilar to the role Tenno played in the Origin system, though the Jedi seemed far more institutionalized. But they also represented the unknown. Could these Force users truly help? Or would they see the Warframe as a threat to be contained? Before the operator could formulate a response, Ortis's voice crackled through the transference link with unusual urgency: Operator. Urgent. The orbiter's sensors detect massive energy buildup from both fleet formations. Scanning, blood and screaming. They're preparing to destroy this frigate with all hands. Including the Jedi. Including you. Time to impact, 90 seconds. Anakin's comlink chirped at the same moment. General Skywalker, this is Admiral Yularen. We've lost your signal for too long. The Separatist frigate you boarded is being targeted for immediate destruction. You need to evacuate now. Negative, Admiral. I've made contact with the unknown. Sir, the Separatist fleet is charging weapons as well. Both sides are about to fire everything they have at that position. Whatever's on that ship, they want it dead more than they want to win this battle. You have 1 minute to extract. Anakin cursed under his breath, then looked at the Excalibur. Change of plans. We're both about to become space dust. My starfighter's still in the hangar bay 2 decks down, but there's no way it can carry both of us. The Warframe's hand moved in a sharp gesture, follow, and began running down the corridor with speed that made Anakin stretch his force-enhanced capabilities just to keep pace. The Tenno moved with fluid grace through the maze of passages, the operator's neural mapping systems plotting the optimal path to the external hull even as battle droids continued to emerge from side corridors. The Excalibur didn't slow down. The scanner flashed out, bisecting droids without breaking stride. The Lex Prime barked once, twice, 3 times, each shot a perfect headshot that dropped a droid before it could fire. Anakin found himself in the strange position of following rather than leading, trusting this unknown warrior to navigate them to safety. They burst through a maintenance bay door just as the first turbolaser strikes hammered into the frigate's hull. The ship shuddered violently, artificial gravity fluctuating. Through the transparent steel viewport, Anakin could see the Republic Star Destroyer Resolute and the Separatist Dreadnought Invisible Hand both unleashing coordinated fire patterns designed not to disable but to utterly annihilate their target. Ortis, the operator commanded silently. Emergency extraction. My coordinates. 30 seconds. Operator, the orbiter's stealth systems are still damaged. If I break concealment for pickup, both fleets will track our position. Acceptable risk. Execute. The maintenance bay's external doors were sealed, blast-proof, magnetically locked, designed to withstand decompression. The Excalibur raised both hands, and void energy gathered despite the resistance, despite the strain. The operator pushed harder, channeling more power than was safe given the dimensional interference. Behind those optics, in the somatic link chamber, the operator's physical body began to bleed from the nose as transference connections strained under the load. Reality warped. The blast doors groaned as forces that shouldn't exist in this universe tore at their molecular bonds. Metal screamed. The force itself seemed to recoil from the effect, and Anakin stumbled as his connection to it momentarily destabilized, like trying to see through water suddenly turned to ice. The doors ripped free of their housing and tumbled into space. Atmosphere howled out of the breach, dragging loose equipment and debris into the void. Anakin threw up a force barrier on instinct, anchoring himself to the deck, but the Excalibur simply maglocked its boots and stood firm as hurricane winds tore past its frame. "What's your plan?" Anakin shouted over the roar of escaping air. "We can't survive in vacuum." The answer came in the form of sleek metal cutting through the chaos of the space battle. The Orbiter, smaller than a Republic shuttle, its design language utterly alien with flowing organic curves and biomechanical integration, materialized from stealth protocols mere meters from the breached maintenance bay. Its side hatch was already open, the interior lit by cool blue light. "Operator, we are being targeted by," Ordis began, then shrieked as turbolaser fire lanced past the ship, barely missing. The Excalibur grabbed Anakin by the arm with grip strength that would have shattered bone if not for the Jedi's force-enhanced durability, then leaped into space. The mag boots disengaged, directional thrusters fired, and suddenly they were crossing the void between the dying frigate and the Orbiter. Anakin had experienced spacewalks before, but never like this, no suit, no tether, nothing but the force sustaining him and the iron grip of this Tenno warrior pulling him toward salvation. They tumbled through the Orbiter's hatch half a second before proximity explosions from the frigate's destruction sent shrapnel screaming through the space they just occupied. The hatch sealed automatically, and atmosphere flooded the small airlock. Anakin collapsed against the wall, gasping, while the Excalibur stood perfectly calm as if it had just completed a routine training exercise. "Operator. Welcome back. And you've brought a, kill the intruder, guest. How delightful." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, cheerful and manic in equal measure. Anakin's hand went to his lightsaber, but the Excalibur raised a calming hand, then gestured toward the cockpit. "Was that an AI?" Anakin asked, still catching his breath. The Warframe nodded once, then moved deeper into the ship. Anakin followed, his Jedi training keeping his guard up even as curiosity pulled him forward. The interior of the Orbiter was unlike any vessel he'd encountered, organic curves blended with technological precision, surfaces that seemed to shift between metal and something almost biological. The lighting was soft, almost meditative, and the air carried a faint scent he couldn't identify. They entered what had to be the cockpit, though it resembled an observation lounge more than a military command center. A large viewport dominated the forward wall, displaying the continuing space battle outside. Holographic interfaces floated in mid-air, displaying data in scripts Anakin didn't recognize. And in the pilot's seat, the Excalibur sat down and went completely still. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the Warframe's head tilted forward slightly, and a young voice, human, no older than 14 or 15, carrying an accent Anakin had never heard, spoke from the frame's vocabulator with a quality that suggested it wasn't synthesized but transmitted. "Sorry about that. Transference takes a moment to stabilize when I'm splitting focus." Anakin stared. There's someone inside that armor." "Not inside. Controlling remotely." The Excalibur gestured vaguely at its own chest. "This is a Warframe. I'm the operator. Think of it as advanced telepresence, except that a drone is a biomechanical weapons platform grown from technocyte infestation and orokin technology, and the connection is made through void energy linking my consciousness to." The frame paused. "You have no context for any of those terms, do you?" "Not even a little," Anakin admitted. "Right. Short version, I'm human. Mostly. The Warframe is what I use to fight. It's complicated." The Orbiter shuddered as another explosion bloomed in the space battle outside. Ordis's voice returned, more stable now. "Operator, both fleets have ceased targeting us specifically, but we are still in an active combat zone. Recommend immediate departure to, nowhere is safe, nowhere is safe, to a less contested region of space. Agreed. Plot a course away from both fleets. Maximum stealth. The ship began to move, its engines producing barely any visible signature as it slipped between the larger capital ships like a shadow between searchlights. Anakin watched the tactical display, impressed despite himself by the ship's maneuverability and stealth capabilities. No Republic vessel could move like that, and certainly no Separatist craft. "You said the Jedi Council might help me," the operator said, the Excalibur still serving as their proxy. "But I need to understand something first. In my system, there are three major powers: the Griner Empire, militaristic clones bred for conquest. The Corpus, a corporate technocracy that worships profit. And the Infested, a techno-organic plague that consumes everything. The Tenno exist to maintain balance. We fight all three when they threaten stability, and we serve none of them." Anakin absorbed this, seeing uncomfortable parallels. "You're saying you're neutral. I'm saying we complete missions. We fight threats. We maintain equilibrium. We don't take sides in ideological wars because we've learned that every side claims righteousness." The Excalibur turned its head to look at Anakin directly. "So before I meet your council, I need to know, is the Republic the side of righteousness it claims to be? Or am I about to walk into another faction that will try to use me as a weapon?" The question hung in the air between them. Anakin wanted to give an immediate affirmative, to defend the Republic and the Jedi Order without hesitation. But the doubts he'd been harboring, the growing sense that something was wrong with this war, that the Jedi had lost their way, that Chancellor Palpatine's expanding power suggested darker currents beneath the surface, made him hesitate. "I believe the Republic is worth defending," Anakin said finally. "I believe the Jedi serve a greater good. But I also know that war changes things. Makes people compromise. Makes them do things they wouldn't normally do in the name of victory." He met what he assumed were the Excalibur's eyes behind those optics. "I can't promise the Council won't see you as a weapon. But I can promise I'll advocate for treating you as a person, not a tool. That's the best I can offer." The operator considered this for a long moment. In the somatic link chamber, hidden within the orbiter's secure section, the young human's physical body remained motionless except for the steady rise and fall of breathing. Through transference, they evaluated Anakin Skywalker, his body language, his vocal patterns, his emotional resonance even without the Force to read him directly. The Jedi was being honest. That was rare enough to be valuable. "Ordis, set course for Coruscant. These coordinates." The Excalibur transmitted data from the intercepted Republic transmissions. "We're going to meet this council. Operator, are you certain this is wise? We are damaged, low on resources, and we're also stranded in an unknown galaxy with no clear path home. We need intelligence. Allies, if possible. This is a reconnaissance mission, Ordis. We gather information, assess threats, and adapt. As you command, Operator. Though I maintain my, trust no one, kill everyone, concerns about this course of action." Anakin raised an eyebrow. "Is your AI always like that?" "Ordis is, damaged. Fragmented. His personality matrix was corrupted a long time ago. The murderous impulses usually stay suppressed." The Excalibur stood. "Usually. That's comforting. You'll find very little about the Tenno is designed for comfort, Jedi. We're weapons. The difference is, we get to choose who we point ourselves at." The Warframe gestured toward a side compartment. "It's a 2-day journey to Coruscant at our maximum stealth speed. You should rest. There's a spare quarters section you can use." Anakin nodded slowly, still processing everything that had happened in the last 20 minutes. A warrior from another dimension, traveling in a ship that defied Republic understanding, claiming to be neutral in a galaxy-wide conflict while demonstrating combat abilities that rivaled any Jedi he'd encountered. Master Yoda was going to have thoughts about this. As Anakin headed toward the quarter section, the Excalibur remained in the cockpit, its posture relaxed but alert. Outside the viewport, the space battle continued to rage, but the orbiter had already slipped beyond sensor range. In the void between stars, the strange ship from another reality carried its mysterious passenger toward the heart of the Republic. Neither the operator nor Anakin noticed the encrypted transmission that pulsed from the orbiter's hull, a brief quantum signature that matched no known technology, automatically recorded by the Resolute's long-range sensors and flagged for intelligence analysis. A signature that would reach Coruscant's intelligence networks within hours. And from there, it would reach someone far more dangerous than either of them suspected. On Coruscant, in the shadows of the Senate building, Darth Sidious felt a disturbance in the Force unlike anything he'd experienced in decades. Something had entered the galaxy. Something that existed outside the Force's influence. Something that could disrupt his carefully laid plans if left unchecked. He smiled in the darkness. Disruptions could be useful, if properly controlled. Coruscant emerged from hyperspace like a jewel catching starlight. The operator had seen countless worlds through the Warframe's optics, gas giants wrapped in storms, ice moons reflecting pale suns, orbital habitats constructed by ancient Orokin architects, but nothing quite like this. An entire planet covered in cityscape, layers upon layers of architecture stretching from ground level to the upper atmosphere where gleaming towers pierced the clouds. Trillions of beings, all compressed into a single ecumenopolis that pulsed with energy signatures the orbiter's sensors struggled to catalog. Population density exceeds Origin system urban centers by factor of 12, Ordis reported, his voice carrying equal parts fascination and distress. Traffic patterns suggest approximately 5,000 discrete skylanes within sensor range. Operator, this civilization has achieved urbanization on a scale that would make even the Orokin, burn it all, watch it fall, envious. The Excalibur sat motionless in the cockpit as the orbiter descended through designated approach vectors, following Anakin's transmitted clearance codes. The Jedi stood beside the Warframe, watching his home planet grow larger in the viewport. 2 days of travel had created an uneasy truce between them, Anakin sharing stories of the Republic and the Jedi Order, the operator offering carefully edited accounts of the Origin system and Tenno operations. Neither had fully trusted the other. But they'd reached an understanding. The Jedi Temple, Anakin said, pointing toward a massive ziggurat structure that dominated an entire city sector. That's where the Council meets. Fair warning, they're going to be suspicious. Probably hostile at first. Master Windu especially has a tendency to see threats before opportunities. Threat assessment is rational, the operator replied through the Warframe's vocabulator. I am a threat. The question is whether I'm their threat. That's what we need to convince them of. Anakin hesitated, then added, one more thing. When we land, you might want to consider appearing in person. The Warframe, it's impressive, but it's also intimidating. If you want them to see you as something other than a weapon, showing them the human underneath might help. The operator was silent for several seconds. Appearing outside the Warframe meant vulnerability. The physical body was fragile compared to the enhanced durability of technocyte tissue and Orokin alloys. But it also meant demonstrating trust, and tactical analysis suggested trust might be the currency needed here. I'll consider it, the operator said finally. The orbiter touched down in a restricted hangar bay, its landing gear extending with mechanical precision. Through the viewport, the operator watched a reception committee assemble, Jedi in various configurations of robes, some older with gray hair and measured movements, others younger with hands resting near lightsaber hilts. Behind them stood what appeared to be security personnel in matching armor, their weapons clearly visible. Temple Guard, Anakin explained. Ceremonial mostly, but they're skilled. Try not to start a fight. I never start fights, Jedi. I end them. Anakin couldn't tell if that was meant to be reassuring. The orbiter's hatch opened, and Anakin descended first, his presence immediately calming some of the tension in the assembled Jedi. But that tension returned threefold when the Excalibur emerged behind him, 3 meters of biomechanical warfare stepping into the late afternoon light of Coruscant. The Warframe moved with predatory grace, and every Jedi present felt the same disturbing absence in the Force, the same sensation of something that shouldn't exist standing before them. Master Mace Windu stepped forward, his dark features set in an expression of controlled wariness. Skywalker. Your report indicated first contact with an extra-dimensional entity. This is that entity? Master Windu, this is a Tenno, a warrior from what they call the Origin System. They're here by accident, seeking a way home, and they've agreed to meet with the Council. Anakin gestured toward the Excalibur. They mean no harm to the Republic. Mean no harm, Windu repeated, his gaze never leaving the Warframe. Yet your initial report described this being cutting through a Separatist frigate like tissue paper and engaging you in single combat. Self-defense, the operator responded through the Warframe's vocabulator, the young voice carrying clearly across the hangar. Your forces and the Separatists both attempted to capture or destroy my ship. I defended myself. When Skywalker offered negotiation, I accepted. An older Jedi stepped forward, Master Yoda, his small stature belying the weight of authority he carried. His ears twitched as he regarded the Excalibur with eyes that had witnessed 9 centuries of galactic history. Feel you through the Force, we cannot. A void you are, where life should be. Disturbing, this is. The Force and my void energy are incompatible, the operator explained. They exist in similar dimensional space but operate on different principles. I'm not absent from your Force, I'm orthogonal to it. Yoda's eyes narrowed. Understand these concepts, you do. Knowledge of dimensional physics, most beings do not possess. My people have fought enemies that exist between dimensions. We've closed tiers in reality and battled things that shouldn't exist in normal space. Understanding the void isn't optional, it's survival. Mace Windu's hand drifted toward his lightsaber. You speak of yourself as a weapon. I speak of myself as I am. The Excalibur's posture didn't change, but something in the operator's tone carried quiet steel. The Warframe is a weapons platform. I am the operator who controls it. There's a distinction. Then perhaps, interjected a third voice, Jedi Master Plo Koon, his Keldor features hidden behind a protective mask, you would be willing to demonstrate that distinction. We would speak with the operator, not the weapon. The request hung in the air. The operator calculated angles, trust given versus vulnerability accepted, diplomatic gain versus tactical risk. Through the transference link, they could feel the somatic chamber waiting, could sense the option to simply retreat into the Warframe's protection and refuse. But the mission required intelligence. Required understanding. Required, perhaps, a leap of faith. Ordis, prepare somatic chamber for visitor protocol. Authorization Operator 77 Amber. Operator, are you certain? Revealing your physical form to unknown. Execute. The Excalibur turned and walked back into the orbiter. The assembled Jedi exchanged glances, uncertain what was happening. A moment later, the Warframe returned, but this time it moved differently, less predatory grace, more mechanical precision. It carried something in its arms. The operator. The physical body was smaller than anyone expected, a teenager, perhaps 14 or 15 standard years, wearing a specialized suit that covered most of their form but left their face visible. The features were androgynous, young, marked by faint scars that spoke of past trauma. But it was the eyes that caught attention, old eyes in a young face, carrying weight no child should bear. The Excalibur set the operator down gently, and the young human stood on unsteady legs, clearly unused to supporting their own weight outside transference. The Warframe remained close, a silent guardian that would respond to neural command in microseconds if needed. This is what I am, the operator said, their physical voice softer than the Warframe's vocabulator but carrying the same measured cadence. The Tenno are children who survived the Zariman 10-0 incident, a ship that was lost in the void and returned changed. We were dying until the Orokin Empire bound us to the Warframes, using transference technology to link our consciousness to these biomechanical frames. We became their weapons, then we became their executioners when their empire grew corrupt, and now we serve the balance of our system. Master Yoda approached slowly, his small form seeming even smaller next to the towering Excalibur. But his eyes remained fixed on the operator, seeing past the scars and the youth to something deeper. A child soldier, you were made. Much pain, you have endured. I've endured what was necessary, the operator replied evenly. We all have. The Tenno number in the thousands across the origin system. We're the last line of defense against threats that would consume everything. We don't ask for thanks. We complete the mission. Mace Windu studied the operator with new eyes, reassessing. A child commanding a weapon of war through telepresence technology. A victim of circumstance who'd become something far more dangerous than any conventional soldier. And your mission now is to return home? Yes. I have no stake in your war between Republic and Separatists. I'm not here to conquer, convert, or claim territory. I want navigational data, dimensional analysis, and any information that might help me understand how the breach occurred so I can reverse it. And if we cannot provide such information? Plo Koon asked gently. The operator's expression remained neutral. Then I adapt. I survive. I find another way. It's what Tenno do. A fourth voice cut through the conversation, Count Dooku, his elegant tones carrying from the hangar entrance where he stood flanked by two Magna Guards. The Separatist leader wore his customary dark clothing, his white beard and aristocratic features projecting an air of cultured menace. How fascinating. The Republic's newest potential weapon, delivered directly to their doorstep. Every Jedi ignited their lightsabers in unison. The Temple Guard moved to surround the operator and the Excalibur. Anakin's blade snapped to life with a blue glow that reflected off the hangar's polished floor. Dooku. You've got a lot of nerve coming here. I have diplomatic immunity, young Skywalker. The Senate still pretends to honor such things. Dooku's eyes never left the operator. But I'm not here for politics. I'm here to make an offer to our dimensional traveler. The Excalibur moved in front of the operator instantly, its hand on the scanner's hilt. But the operator placed a small hand on the Warframe's arm, a gesture of restraint. I'm listening, the operator said carefully. Dooku smiled. The Republic will study you. Analyze you. Eventually, they'll try to control you or neutralize you as a threat. The Jedi are skilled at convincing themselves that control serves the greater good. He took a measured step forward, and the Jedi tensed but didn't attack, diplomatic immunity held, for now. The Separatist alliance, however, has no such pretensions. We value independence. Autonomy. Freedom from centralized control. We could provide you with resources, technology, and unhindered access to our scientific facilities to research dimensional phenomena. In exchange for what? The operator asked flatly. Your neutrality. Simply agree not to ally with the Republic against us. Continue your mission to return home. If you choose to take contracts for combat operations, as I understand Tenno are wont to do, we would of course offer competitive compensation. But no binding agreements. No chains. Mace Windu's voice was granite. He's lying. The Separatists will dissect your technology and use it against the Republic. Against innocent beings across the galaxy. And the Republic wouldn't do the same. Dooku countered smoothly. Come now, Master Windu. How many weapons programs does the Senate currently fund? How many experimental initiatives does military intelligence operate without Jedi oversight? At least I'm honest about my intentions. The operator's mind raced through the tactical implications. Dooku's offer had appeal, independence, resources, freedom to operate without Republic oversight. But it also carried obvious traps. The Separatists were corporate-backed militarists who used droid armies to subjugate populations. The parallels to the Corpus were unmistakable. And yet, the Republic's offer came with its own chains, study, analysis, potential control by a government that claimed righteousness while waging galaxy-wide war. In the origin system, the Tenno navigated between three hostile factions by serving none of them completely. Could the same strategy work here? Your offer is noted, the operator said finally. But I make no commitments until I understand this galaxy's dynamics better. Both sides of your war claim moral authority. Both sides commit atrocities in the name of their cause. I've seen this pattern before. Dooku's smile widened. Wise. Refreshingly cynical for one so young. Very well, consider my offer standing. When you tire of the Republic's inevitable attempts to leash you, contact me through these coordinates. He transmitted data through a small projector. I suspect we'll speak again soon. You're not leaving, Anakin said, his lightsaber raised. You're a Sith Lord, a war criminal, and you just walked into the heart of the Jedi Temple. That's either incredibly arrogant or a distraction for something else. Neither, I'm afraid. Simply confidence in the Republic's adherence to laws it claims to value. Dooku bowed slightly toward the operator. Until we meet again, young Tenno. May you find your way home, with or without the Republic's help. He departed, his Magna Guards following, and none of the Jedi moved to stop him. Diplomatic immunity, political calculations, and the risk of starting a battle in the temple itself all combined to create reluctant inaction. Master Yoda watched Dooku leave, then turned back to the operator. Choose, you must. Trust the Republic, or walk a different path. But know this, powerful you are, and power draws attention. Dangerous attention. The operator met Yoda's ancient gaze. I've faced dangerous attention before, Master Yoda. I've fought sentients that adapted to every weapon I used against them. I've battled Corpus proxy armies and Griner invasion forces. I've survived things that would break conventional soldiers. They paused, then added quietly, but I'm not looking for another war. I just want to go home. Then help us, we will try, Yoda said. But careful, we must be. The Force is in flux. The war grows darker. And now you arrive, a being outside the Force itself. Coincidence, this may not be. The operator felt a chill despite the warm Coruscant air. In the origin system, coincidences were often Lotus-orchestrated missions or enemy plots disguised as random events. If this galaxy operated under similar rules, then their arrival might be less accident and more design. But whose design? And for what purpose? I'll cooperate with your council, the operator decided. But I maintain operational independence. I'm not joining your war. I'm not becoming your weapon. I'm a consultant, nothing more. Mace Windu's expression remained skeptical, but he nodded slowly. We'll convene the council tomorrow. Prepare your testimony. And operator, keep that Warframe under control. One wrong move in the temple, and diplomatic considerations end. Understood. As the Jedi dispersed and arrangements were made for temporary quarters, the operator returned to transference, their consciousness flowing back into the Excalibur's protective shell. The Warframe's enhanced senses immediately cataloged dozens of surveillance devices, concealed weapons emplacements, and security measures throughout the hangar. Ordis, the operator commanded silently. Begin covert scans of all Republic technology signatures. Build a database of their capabilities. And monitor all transmissions. I want to know if anyone reports our presence to unauthorized parties. Already in progress, operator. Though I must note the level of paranoia is survival, caution you're displaying suggests you don't trust our hosts. I don't trust anyone in an active war zone, Ordis. That's how Tenno survive. In orbit above Coruscant, hidden within the streaming traffic of thousands of ships, a small probe recorded the operator's arrival and transmitted encrypted data across secure channels. The data traveled through relay after relay until it reached an office deep within the Senate building, where it was received by someone who smiled in the darkness. Darth Sidious reviewed the footage of the strange warrior and the child who controlled it. Fascinating. A power outside the Force. A weapon without allegiance. And most importantly, a disruption to the carefully balanced plans that would soon see the Republic transformed into an empire. This Tenno would need to be dealt with. Either recruited to his cause, or eliminated before they could interfere with Order 66. The Sith Lord began making arrangements. After all, he'd spent decades planning for every contingency. One more variable, however exotic, wouldn't stop the grand plan. But Sidious didn't know what every Tenno learned early in their training: variables had a tendency to become very dangerous when underestimated. The Jedi Temple's meditation chamber was designed to enhance connection to the Force, circular architecture that focused ambient energy, soft lighting that encouraged contemplation, and complete silence that allowed for deeper spiritual communion. For most Jedi, entering this space meant feeling the Force flow through them with crystalline clarity. For the Operator, standing in the center of the chamber surrounded by the 12 members of the Jedi Council, it meant feeling absolutely nothing. The Excalibur stood motionless, a pillar of biomechanical composure while council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The absence the Warframe created wasn't merely neutral, it was actively disturbing, a blind spot in their collective awareness that made experienced Jedi Masters feel as if they were missing a limb. "Explain again," Master Windu said, his voice tight with controlled frustration, "how you arrived in our galaxy." The Operator had been answering variations of this question for 3 hours. They'd described the void, the solar rails, the dimensional breach. They'd outlined Tenno operations, the balance maintained in the origin system, and the technological basis of transference. They'd even allowed Republic technicians to scan the orbiter's damaged systems, under strict supervision, to verify their claims. And still, the Council remained divided. The Zeriman 10-0 was a colony ship, the Operator repeated with mechanical patience. It entered a region we call the Void, a dimensional space that exists adjacent to normal reality. The ship was lost for years. When it returned, everyone aboard was either dead or changed. The children survived because we'd been exposed to void energy during critical developmental years. We became something else. Something that could channel that energy. Master Yoda's eyes remained closed, his ancient presence reaching toward the Operator and finding only empty space. Channel energy from outside reality, you do. Dangerous, this is. Unpredictable. It's controlled, the Operator countered. Tenno have used void energy for centuries without dimensional collapse or reality failure. We understand its limits. Yet you claim it interferes with our Force, Jedi Master Ki-Adi-Mundi interjected, his elongated cranium tilting thoughtfully. This suggests mutual incompatibility at a fundamental level. What happens if you use void energy extensively while remaining in our galaxy? Could you destabilize the Force itself? The Operator hesitated. Through the transference link, they felt Ordis running calculations in the orbiter's processors, analyzing the limited data they'd gathered about Force mechanics. The answer came back uncertain, possible, but unlikely. Probably. Maybe. I don't know, the Operator admitted. The Force is life energy binding all things. Void energy is quantum chaos from dimensional boundaries. They're fundamentally different phenomena. But extensive use might create localized distortions. Might, Mace Windu repeated coldly. You're asking us to trust a might, when the Force is the foundation of everything we are. I'm not asking for trust, Master Windu. I'm asking for cooperation in finding a way home so I stop being your problem. Anakin, standing to one side as an observer, watched the exchange with growing concern. The Council was treating the Operator like a threat to be managed rather than an ally to be aided. He'd seen this pattern before, the Jedi's tendency to control anything they didn't understand, to neutralize potential dangers before those dangers materialized. Perhaps, Master Plo Koon suggested diplomatically, we should focus on the practical matter. Operator, you need dimensional analysis and navigational data. We need assurance you won't destabilize our galaxy while you're here. A compromise exists. I'm listening. The Jedi archives contain records spanning thousands of years, including documented cases of dimensional anomalies, spatial tears, and force-related phenomena that might relate to your situation. Master Jocasta Nu, our chief librarian, could grant you access, under supervision. In exchange, you agree to limit your void energy usage to emergencies only, and you submit to monitoring while you remain on Coruscant. The operator considered this. Limited access was better than none. Monitoring was invasive but expected given the circumstances. And restricting void usage wasn't ideal, but the Warframe's physical capabilities alone were usually sufficient for most situations. Acceptable, the operator said. With two conditions. First, I maintain operational independence. I'm not subordinate to Jedi command structure. Second, I get full access to any data related to dimensional physics, spatial anomalies, or quantum phenomena. No classified restrictions. Absolutely not, Windu snapped. Some knowledge is restricted for good reason. Then we have no deal. The Excalibur's stance shifted subtly, weight redistributing in a way that suggested readiness despite outward calm. I'm not interested in your military secrets or political machinations. I need scientific data to solve a dimensional navigation problem. If you can't trust me with that, then you can't help me, and I'll find another path. Other path, there may not be, Yoda said quietly. Dangerous, to walk alone in galaxy at war. I've walked alone before, Master Yoda. It's familiar territory. Silence stretched through the chamber. The council members exchanged glances, silent communication flowing through force bonds the operator couldn't perceive. Finally, Yoda nodded slowly. Access to archives, you shall have. Full access to dimensional research. But monitored, you will be. And demonstrate restraint, you must. The Force is uneasy with your presence. The feeling's mutual, the operator replied. Then, recognizing the concession for what it was, they added, Thank you, Master Yoda. I'll begin research immediately. As the council session concluded and Jedi began to disperse, Anakin approached the Excalibur. That went better than expected. Windu usually doesn't give ground that easily. He didn't give ground, he changed tactics. Now they'll monitor everything I access, track every movement, and use the data to build profiles on Tenno capabilities. The operator's tone carried no accusation, just tactical assessment. It's what I'd do in their position. You're remarkably paranoid for someone seeking help. Paranoia implies irrational fear. This is pattern recognition based on experience. The Excalibur began walking toward the archive wing, Anakin following. Every faction in the Origin system initially tried to control or weaponize the Tenno. The Corpus wanted to dissect us for technology. The Griner wanted to clone us for their armies. Even the Lotus, our handler, kept secrets about what we really are. Trust is a luxury I can't afford. The Jedi aren't like that. Aren't they? The operator's voice carried gentle challenge. You've been at war for 3 years. How many compromises have the Jedi made in the name of victory? How many times have peacekeepers acted as soldiers? How many lines have you crossed that you never thought you'd approach? Anakin's jaw tightened. The questions cut too close to doubts he'd been suppressing for months. We're fighting to protect the Republic. To stop the Separatists from. I've heard this speech before, Jedi. Different words, same sentiment. Everyone believes their war is righteous. The Excalibur stopped at the archive entrance, turning to face Anakin. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I've learned to question everyone's righteousness equally. Before Anakin could respond, the archive doors opened and Master Jocasta Nu emerged, an elderly human woman whose stern features and precise movements suggested someone who valued order and knowledge above all else. You must be the operator. I've prepared a research terminal in the restricted section. Follow me, please. The Jedi archives were vast beyond comprehension, data storage that represented millennia of accumulated knowledge organized with meticulous care. Physical holocrons shared space with digital databases, ancient texts rested beside holographic interfaces, and the air itself seemed heavy with the weight of preserved wisdom. The operator's tactical mind immediately began cataloging potential intelligence value even as they followed Master Nu to a secluded terminal. How far back do your records extend? The oldest verified records date to approximately 25,000 years before present, Nu replied, her voice carrying the pride of a curator discussing a prized collection. Though we have fragmentary data and legends extending much further. What specifically are you researching? Dimensional anomalies. Spatial tiers. Any recorded instances of objects or beings crossing between realities or entering from outside your galaxy. Nu's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. Those records are limited and often contradictory. The Force provides many explanations for phenomena that could be interpreted as dimensional in nature. I need the data regardless. Even contradictory information helps establish parameters. The terminal activated under Nu's authorization, displaying search parameters. I'll leave you to your research. However, be aware that Padawan Ahsoka Tano will be observing from the upper gallery. Standard security protocol for accessing restricted materials. The operator glanced upward and spotted a young Togruta female watching from a balcony level, Anakin's apprentice, based on intercepted communications. The monitoring was expected but still mildly irritating. Understood. As Nu departed, the Excalibur settled into the terminal station and began accessing files. Through transference, the operator's consciousness processed information at superhuman speed, cross-referencing data points and building analytical models. Hours passed as records flowed across the screen, accounts of spatial anomalies, Force-sensitive individuals who'd experienced dimensional visions, ancient Sith experiments with reality manipulation, even fragmentary legends about the Celestials who'd supposedly reshaped the galaxy itself. But nothing directly applicable to void travel. Nothing that explained how a solar rail breach could punch through to this galaxy. The physics were fundamentally different. Where the origin system's universe allowed for void transit as a natural phenomenon, this galaxy's physical laws seemed actively resistant to such breaches. Ordis, the operator commanded through encrypted neural link. Analysis. Based on collected data, probability of finding natural pathway home. Processing. Operator, I calculate less than 8% probability of locating exploitable dimensional weakness using local technology and knowledge. The Force appears to have a beautiful destruction, a stabilizing effect on reality in this galaxy. Tears that would normally persist are healed by ambient Force energy. This galaxy actively rejects dimensional intrusion. The operator absorbed this grim assessment. 8%. Not impossible, but requiring either extraordinary luck or resources far beyond what the Republic could provide. Which meant extended stay. Potentially permanent residence in a galaxy at war, surrounded by factions that would eventually demand they choose sides. Unacceptable. Ordis, hypothetical, could we artificially create a large enough dimensional breach to force passage back to the origin system? Operator, yes. Theoretically. But the energy requirements would be catastrophic. You'd need to replicate the conditions that brought us here, a solar rail collision or equivalent massive void energy surge. In practical terms, you'd need to destabilize a significant portion of this galaxy's space-time fabric. The collateral damage would be glorious annihilation, extensive. Not an option then. The operator leaned back, processing implications. Creating a breach that catastrophic would kill billions, possibly trillions. The Tenno maintained balance, protected the innocent, prevented atrocities. Committing genocide to go home violated every principle that gave their existence meaning. Which left adaptation. Or finding someone with knowledge the Jedi archives lacked. The operator's thoughts turned to Dooku's offer. The Separatists were corporate-backed and morally compromised, but they also had scientific resources the Republic might not. And there were other factors in this galaxy, criminal syndicates, independent researchers, Force-sensitive cults operating outside Jedi oversight. From the upper gallery, Ahsoka watched the Warframe sit motionless for nearly 20 minutes, occasionally accessing new files but mostly appearing to simply think. It was unsettling watching something that felt like a void in the Force display such obvious intelligence and purpose. Master Skywalker had described the operator as a child soldier, but Ahsoka saw nothing childlike in the cold calculation the Tenno displayed. A proximity alert interrupted her observation, an encrypted message on her personal communicator. Unknown sender, routing through anonymous relays. Against her better judgment, Ahsoka opened it. The message was simple: the operator seeks dimensional knowledge. We possess knowledge the Jedi do not. Interest in true cooperation. Contact attached coordinates. Time sensitive. No signature. No identification. But the implication was clear: someone outside the Republic was making a play for the Tenno's allegiance. Ahsoka should report this immediately. Should inform the Council that external agents were attempting to contact the operator. Should activate security protocols. Instead, she found herself hesitating, finger hovering over the delete command. What if the message was legitimate? What if someone truly could help the operator get home, removing a destabilizing variable from the Republic? Wasn't that worth at least investigating? Below, the Excalibur stood abruptly, its head tilting as if listening to something inaudible. Then the Warframe turned and looked directly at Ahsoka despite the distance and angle making direct visual contact impossible. The operator's voice carried through the archive's acoustic design: Padawan Tenno. If you've received an unsolicited message in the last 60 seconds, don't respond to it. It's a trap. Ahsoka's blood ran cold. How did you? Electronic warfare suite detected unauthorized transmission entering the temple's communication network. Traced it to your personal device. The Excalibur began moving toward the stairs. Someone's testing security and trying to compromise observers. Whoever sent that message wants to see if you'll act against Jedi protocols. I wasn't going to. I didn't say you were. But the attempt itself is valuable intelligence. The Warframe reached the gallery level with inhuman speed. Forward the message to me. I want to analyze the routing. Ahsoka found herself complying despite having no reason to trust this dimensional stranger. She transmitted the data, and within seconds the Excalibur's systems had dissected it. Routed through 17 relays, final origin point masked. Professional-grade operational security. The operator's tone carried grudging respect. Someone with significant resources is very interested in making contact without Jedi knowledge. And they knew exactly which observer to target: young, idealistic, potentially susceptible to arguments about helping me reach my goal. I wouldn't have. I know. Your body language and decision hesitation pattern suggested you'd report it eventually. But they didn't know that. They took a calculated risk. The Excalibur turned away, already moving back toward the research terminal. Tell your masters about the contact attempt. And Padawan. Watch for more. Whoever's playing this game has resources and patience. Ahsoka stood frozen, processing the interaction. The operator had read her intentions, analyzed the threat, and provided instruction, all with the casual efficiency of someone accustomed to operating in hostile intelligence environments. Master Skywalker was right. This Tenno wasn't just a warrior. They were something far more dangerous, a tactician who'd learned to survive in a galaxy of competing powers by trusting no one and analyzing everything. As Ahsoka departed to report to the Council, the operator returned to research with renewed focus. Someone was making moves. Someone wanted the Tenno's allegiance badly enough to risk infiltrating Jedi Temple communications. The game had begun. And in the Origin system, the Tenno had played this game for centuries. Time to show this galaxy how it was done. The Coruscant underworld began 500 levels below the gleaming temple spires. Down here, the sun never reached, and the only illumination came from flickering neon advertisements and the occasional spark from failing infrastructure. The operator had seen similar stratification in the origin system, the pristine corpus ships floating above the industrial squalor of Griner settlements, the clean lines of Orokin architecture built over the corpses of civilizations they'd conquered. Inequality, it seemed, was universal. The Excalibur moved through the shadows of level 1313, tracking a signal that had appeared in the orbiter's systems 3 hours after the communications intrusion. Not the same source, this one was more direct, almost brazen. A set of coordinates, a time, and a single line of text. You want answers about the void. I have them. Ordis had screamed warnings, trap trap trap, but the operator had made the tactical assessment. Staying in the temple meant limited information and increasing Jedi scrutiny. The archives contained historical data but nothing actionable, nothing that would facilitate return to the origin system. Whoever sent this message claimed knowledge of the void specifically, using terminology that shouldn't exist in this galaxy. That made them either extremely dangerous or potentially valuable. Possibly both. The meeting point was a derelict cantina wedged between rusting support columns and toxic waste processors. The kind of establishment where questions weren't asked and violence was an acceptable form of currency. The Excalibur's sensors detected 43 life signs in the immediate vicinity, most humanoid, some decidedly not, all radiating the casual menace of beings who'd survived in the underworld through pragmatic brutality. The operator entered through the main entrance, making no attempt at stealth. The Warframe's presence caused immediate reaction, conversations stopped, weapons were checked, and every eye in the establishment tracked the biomechanical figure as it moved to a corner booth where a single occupant waited. The figure wore nondescript clothing and a hood that concealed their features. When they spoke, their voice was filtered through a modulator. You came alone. Either very confident or very foolish. Alone is a relative term. The Excalibur settled into the booth with mechanical grace. My ship has orbital strike capabilities locked on this location. So does the Jedi Temple, which is currently tracking this Warframe's position. And I've uploaded my consciousness state to backup systems in case this body is destroyed. So technically, I'm very difficult to kill permanently. A pause. Then the figure's shoulders shook with what might have been laughter. Impressive security architecture. The Jedi could learn from you. The Jedi trust the Force to protect them. I trust redundancy and firepower. The operator's tone remained neutral. You claimed knowledge of the void. Prove it. The figure reached into their cloak slowly, conscious of the Excalibur's hand resting near the scanner, and produced a data chip. This contains research from a source you won't believe. Dimensional studies that predate the Republic by millennia. Analysis of quantum tears in spacetime fabric. And most importantly, documentation of 3 verified instances of extradimensional entities entering this galaxy. 3 instances. How many survived contact? None. 2 were destroyed immediately. 1 was contained and studied before being eliminated as a threat. The figure slid the data chip across the table. Your void energy creates a unique signature, quantum instability that the Force automatically tries to correct. You're not just incompatible with this galaxy, operator. You're being actively rejected by reality itself. The Excalibur's hand closed over the chip, sensors analyzing for trap code or explosive mechanisms. Clean. Who are you, and how do you know about void energy? I represent interested parties who've been watching dimensional boundaries for a very long time. We noticed when you tore through from your origin system. We noticed when the Force rippled with disturbance. And we noticed when both the Republic and Separatists began maneuvering to claim you as an asset. The figure leaned forward. But here's what they don't know, what even the Jedi archives won't tell you. There's someone in this galaxy who's learned to manipulate the Force in ways that mirror your void techniques. Someone who exists partially outside the normal flow of reality. Who? That information has a price. You want to go home? We can help. But we need something in return. The operator had anticipated this. No one offered valuable intelligence without expecting payment. What do you want? There's a Separatist research facility on Mustafar, a lava planet in the Outer Rim. They're developing a weapon that could destabilize the entire war. We want you to infiltrate the facility, gather data on the weapon, and eliminate key personnel developing it. Clean operation. No witnesses. Classic Tenno mission profile. The operator's tactical mind immediately identified the manipulation. Taking this mission meant choosing a side, specifically, choosing against the Separatists. It meant becoming a weapon for whoever this mysterious party represented. And it violated the principle of maintaining neutrality in conflicts that weren't the Tenno's concern. I'm not an assassin for hire. No, you're a warrior who maintains balance in your system by selectively eliminating threats. Consider this a threat assessment. The weapon being developed could kill billions if deployed. Doesn't that warrant Tenno intervention? By whose assessment? Yours. I don't know you, don't trust you, and don't accept missions from anonymous sources who refuse to identify themselves. The figure's posture shifted, disappointment or frustration, difficult to read through the modulator and clothing. Then perhaps you're not as pragmatic as I thought. The Jedi will study you, the Separatists will hunt you, and you'll remain trapped here while both sides tear the galaxy apart. But at least you'll have your principles. The Excalibur stood. My principles are the only thing separating me from being the weapon everyone wants me to be. Keep your data chip and your mission. I'll find another path. There is no other path. The figure's voice carried genuine urgency now. The Force is actively trying to expel you from this reality. Every day you remain here, the dimensional fabric strains. Eventually, it'll snap, and when it does. When it does, what? Silence. Then, quieter, we don't know. Maybe you get violently ejected back to your origin system. Maybe you trigger a cascading dimensional collapse that tears a hole in reality. Maybe nothing happens and you're trapped forever. The research is incomplete. But someone needs to understand what's happening before the consequences become catastrophic. The operator considered this. The figure's urgency felt authentic, and the concern about dimensional instability matched Ordis's calculations. If remaining in this galaxy truly risked reality-level catastrophe, then finding a solution became paramount, not just for the operator's return home, but for the survival of everyone in this galaxy. I'll take the data chip, the operator decided. But no promises about the mission. I'll review the intelligence and make my own assessment of the threat. Fair enough. The figure stood as well. One more thing, be careful who you trust in the temple. Not all Jedi are as honorable as Skywalker. And there are those in the Republic who'd rather see you weaponized than helped home. The Excalibur turned to leave, then paused. Why help me at all? What's your actual goal? Survival, operator. Same as yours. Same as everyone's in a galaxy at war. The figure's modulated voice carried something that might have been sadness. The difference is, some of us see the bigger picture. See what's coming. And we're trying to position the pieces to minimize the damage when everything falls apart. Before the operator could respond, the figure triggered a device that generated a blinding flash and chaotic energy signature. By the time the Excalibur's sensors compensated, the mysterious contact had vanished, likely through a prepositioned escape route or possibly a short-range teleportation device. Ordis, did you track their exit? Negative, operator. Energy signature interference blocked all sensors for approximately 3.7 seconds. Whoever they are, they have, clever, sophisticated counter-surveillance technology. The operator secured the data chip and began moving toward the cantina exit. But halfway there, the Warframe sensors detected a problem. 6 humanoid figures blocking the doorway, all carrying heavy weapons, all focused on the Excalibur with the intensity of hunters cornering prey. That's the thing, the apparent leader said, a Nikto male with scarred features and military-grade armor. The one every bounty board in the underworld's been talking about. Some kind of war machine from outside the galaxy. Bounty? The operator's voice remained calm despite the tactical situation degrading rapidly. Who's paying? Doesn't matter who. Matters that it's enough credits to retire on. The Nikto raised a wicked-looking disruptor rifle. You can come easy, or we can bring back pieces. Either way, we're collecting. The Excalibur's tactical overlay identified the threat profiles instantly, 6 targets, all armed with energy weapons ranging from heavy blasters to military-grade disruptors. The Cantina's other patrons were already clearing out, recognizing imminent violence. No civilians to protect. No collateral concerns. The operator made their decision in microseconds. Pieces it is. The Excalibur moved before the bounty hunters could process the declaration. The Warframe's speed defied their expectations, 3 meters covered in a blink, the scanner clearing its sheath with a sound like singing metal. The first hunter's rifle split in half before he could fire, the molecular edge passing through the weapon's barrel with no resistance. A follow-through strike opened the hunter's chest piece, and he collapsed. The second hunter got a shot off, a disruptor bolt that would have stunned most targets. The Excalibur's shields flared, absorbing the energy, and the Warframe's response was immediate. The Lex Prime materialized in the frame's left hand and fired once. The hunter's head snapped back as the armor-piercing round punched through his helmet. 3 and 4 tried coordinating fire, laying down suppressing patterns while their remaining companions maneuvered for flanking positions. Standard bounty hunter tactics, effective against most targets. The Tenno weren't most targets. The Excalibur launched upward, using the Cantina's support beams as launching points for impossible aerial maneuvers. The Warframe's parkour capabilities turned the three-dimensional space into a weapon, while running along vertical surfaces, rebounding from ceiling pipes, maintaining momentum through movements that made tracking impossible. A burst from above, the Lex Prime firing in controlled pairs. 2 more hunters dropped, their armor insufficient against Orokin-grade penetrators. The 5th hunter, showing more sense than his companions, tried to flee. The Excalibur landed behind him in a crouch that cratered the floor plating, then executed a single stroke with the scanner. The hunter fell in pieces. The Nikto leader, now very much alone, dropped his weapon and raised his hands. Wait. Wait, I surrender. The Excalibur approached slowly, the scanner's blade still humming with residual energy. Who posted the bounty? I don't know. It came through anonymous channels, routed through 6 different brokers. Professional-grade security. Someone with serious resources wants you captured. Captured, not killed. The contract specified non-lethal extraction if possible. Double payment for intact specimen. The Nikto was sweating now, realizing his mistake. Please, I'm just a hunter trying to make credits. I didn't know what you were capable of. Now you do. The Excalibur sheathed the scanner. Tell whoever you work for that I'm not interested in being anyone's specimen. And tell every other hunter on Coruscant the same thing. I'm a Tenno. We don't get captured. The operator let him go, partly because unnecessary killing went against Tenno principles, partly because a survivor would spread the story. Let the underworld know that hunting the Warframe was fatal. Let the bounty networks recalculate their risk assessments. As the Excalibur exited the cantina, Ordis spoke urgently, Operator, Jedi Temple security is pinging for your location. They detected the firefight and are dispatching a response team. Also, I'm picking up encrypted communication suggesting the bounty attempt was only a distraction, multiple parties are now moving on the orbiter's position. The operator's consciousness snapped into full combat alertness. The meeting, the bounty hunters, the entire scenario had been misdirection. While the Excalibur was engaged in the underworld, someone was making a play for the undefended ship. Ordis, activate all defensive systems. Seal the orbiter and prepare for emergency launch. Already in progress, Operator, but there's a problem. they're using some kind of force-based infiltration technique. The ship's physical locks are bypassed. Something is already inside. The operator cursed, a rare break in professional composure, and triggered the Warframe's maximum sprint speed. The distance between level 1313 and the temple landing bay was substantial, but the Excalibur covered it with desperate efficiency, using every shortcut and vertical surface to minimize travel time. 3 minutes. That's how long it took to reach the orbiter's landing coordinates. 3 minutes during which the operator's mind raced through worst-case scenarios: stolen technology, compromised systems, damaged somatic chamber. The Warframe burst into the hangar to find the orbiter's hatch open and 2 figures in dark robes standing at the base of the boarding ramp. Not Jedi, the Force signatures felt wrong, corrupted. Inquisitors, perhaps, or dark side users operating in Republic territory. But the figures weren't attempting to board. They were standing guard. "About time you arrived," one of them said, their voice carrying mechanical distortion. "Your ship's AI is remarkably hostile. We've been attempting to explain we're not hostile, but it keeps threatening to, what was the phrase, paint the walls with our liquefied remains. Ordis, status. They're telling the truth, operator. They've been standing outside trying to communicate for the last, RIP tier kill, 2 minutes. No infiltration detected. My earlier sensor readings were incorrect." The operator felt a chill of realization. The infiltration warning had been false, planted or fabricated to create exactly this reaction. To pull them away from the underworld meeting before they could pursue the mysterious contact's leads. To make them rush back and potentially into an ambush. Except the ambush wasn't here either. This was something else. "Who are you?" the operator demanded. The figures lowered their hoods simultaneously. Both were human, one male with aristocratic features and silver hair, the other female with sharp eyes and a calculating expression. Neither wore Jedi robes or Sith markings. "We represent the interests of someone who wants to speak with you," the male said. "Someone who understands dimensional physics, void energy, and the nature of your predicament better than any Jedi Council member. Someone who might actually be able to help you return home." "In exchange for what?" The female smiled without warmth. "A conversation. Nothing more. One meeting, in a secure location, where information can be freely exchanged without Jedi monitoring or Republic interference. If you're interested, we'll provide coordinates and transportation. If not, we'll leave and you'll never hear from us again." "Who is this someone?" "That will be revealed during the meeting. But I promise you, operator, he knows things about the Force that would make the Jedi Masters weep. And he's very curious about your void energy." The operator's tactical assessments screamed danger. Unknown parties, mysterious benefactors, promises of dimensional knowledge, every pattern suggested manipulation, coercion, or trap. But the alternative was remaining dependent on Jedi resources that had thus far yielded minimal results while the dimensional instability potentially worsened. In the Origin system, the Tenno had learned to play dangerous games with dangerous people. Sometimes that was the only way to complete the mission. "I'll consider the offer," the operator said carefully. "Leave the coordinates. I'll contact you if I decide the risk is acceptable." The female transmitted data to the Excalibur systems, then both figures activated some kind of personal stealth technology and vanished from even the Warframe's advanced sensors. Alone in the hangar, the operator processed the evening's events. 2 mysterious contacts. Multiple parties attempting to recruit or capture. Bounty hunters and false alarms. Someone was running a complex operation with multiple angles, testing responses, gathering intelligence, and maneuvering for position. Ordis, analysis. How many distinct factions have attempted contact or acquisition in the last 6 hours? Processing, minimum 3 distinct groups, operator. Possibly 5 if we assume some contacts are coordinated. And that's only counting groups we've detected. There could be, paranoia is wisdom, additional parties operating beneath our sensor threshold. The operator returned to the orbiter and secured all systems. Through transference, they felt the fatigue in their physical body, the strain of maintaining the connection, of operating in a galaxy that actively resisted their existence. Tomorrow, they'd need to make decisions. About the Jedi. About the mysterious offers. About whether to remain in the Temple's protective custody or strike out independently into a galaxy that apparently saw them as simultaneously threat and prize. But tonight, the operator simply sat in the somatic chamber and allowed themselves a moment of vulnerability. They were 14 years old, impossibly far from home, surrounded by powers they didn't fully understand, and bearing responsibilities no child should carry. The Warframe stood guard in the cockpit, a silent sentinel that would respond instantly to any threat. But for now, the operator was just a frightened kid trying to find their way home. In the Force, patterns shifted. Darth Sidious smiled in his hidden chambers, watching chess pieces move exactly as predicted. The Tenno was isolated, confused, being pulled in multiple directions, perfect conditions for recruitment or elimination. Soon, he'd make his move. And the operator would learn what happened when you played games with a Sith Lord who'd been manipulating the galaxy for decades. The strike came at 0347 local time, when most of Coruscant slept and even Jedi meditation cycles reached their deepest phases. The operator, who never truly slept while maintaining transference, detected the intrusion immediately, energy signatures approaching the orbiter's landing bay with hostile intent, moving with coordination that suggested military training and force enhancement. Ordis, count and classification. 12 targets, operator. Life signs indicate human or near human. Equipment signatures match Republic Special Forces grade, but with modifications suggesting beautiful violence incoming, suggesting Sith influence. They're breaching the hangar perimeter now. The Excalibur was already moving, consciousness fully integrated, systems at combat readiness. Through the orbiter's external sensors, the operator watched the assault team deploy with professional precision, 2 teams of 6, one moving to secure the ship while the other established a perimeter. They wore black armor that absorbed sensor returns, carried weapons that hummed with dark side energy, and moved with the enhanced reflexes of Force sensitives. Inquisitors. Darth Sidious's personal enforcers, tasked with hunting Jedi survivors and eliminating threats to Sith plans. The question was, why now? Why risk an assault in the heart of the Jedi Temple? The answer came as the lead Inquisitor activated a device that generated a force-dampening field across the entire hangar section. The operator felt the effect indirectly, a shift in the ambient pressure, a change in how void energy flowed. The Jedi throughout the temple would suddenly find their connection to this area muted, delayed, distorted. Someone had planned this perfectly. Someone knew exactly how to isolate the operator from potential Jedi support. Ordis, seal all hatches and activate defensive countermeasures. Already done, operator. But they're using plasma cutters on the primary hatch. Breach in approximately 90 seconds. The operator made a tactical decision that would have consequences they couldn't fully predict. Instead of waiting in the orbiter, instead of fighting defensively from prepared positions, the Excalibur opened the emergency hatch manually and dropped into the hangar bay behind the assault team's perimeter. The element of surprise lasted exactly 3 seconds. The nearest Inquisitor spun with force-enhanced speed, crimson lightsaber igniting in a snap hiss that echoed through the hangar. But the Excalibur was already inside their guard, moving with speed that made even force precognition struggle to predict trajectory. The Scanna's molecular edge met the lightsaber's plasma blade in a shower of sparks and impossible physics, Orokin metallurgy versus ancient Sith alchemy, void-enhanced steel versus force-channeled energy. The blade lock held for a fraction of a second before the Excalibur executed a technique that no Sith combat form accounted for. The Warframe released the Scanna entirely, caught the Inquisitor's wrist with both hands, and used the opponent's own momentum to throw them directly into their companion. Both figures crashed into the hangar wall with bone-breaking force. The Lex Prime appeared in the Excalibur's hand before either could recover. 2 shots. 2 precision headshots through helmets rated to withstand blaster fire. The specialized rounds punched through regardless. Tenno weapons didn't respect this galaxy's armor standards. Contact. Unknown hostile engaging with extreme prejudice, an Inquisitor shouted into their comlink. Request. The transmission cut off as the Excalibur's blade took their head. The Warframe had retrieved the scanner mid-motion, the weapon's edge still glowing with residual void energy that made the lightsaber-resistant armor worthless. 10 Inquisitors remaining. All now fully aware of the threat. All converging on the Excalibur's position with coordinated force-enhanced tactics. The battle that followed was brutal efficiency versus dark side fury. The Inquisitors fought with the aggressive forms of Sith combat, powerful strikes designed to overwhelm through raw strength and intimidation. They used force push to create distance, force lightning to attack from range, and coordinated lightsaber strikes to exploit openings. Against most opponents, these tactics would have been devastating. The Operator had fought the Stalker, an enemy who used Warframe abilities against Tenno. Had battled Corpus Tech priests who analyzed fighting patterns in real time. Had survived encounters with sentience that adapted to every weapon used against them. These Inquisitors, skilled as they were, weren't adaptive enough. The Excalibur moved through their formation like water through cracks, never were expected, always exploiting the microsecond gaps in their coordination. A radial blind detonated in the middle of their formation, overloading optical systems and foresight simultaneously. While they staggered, the Warframe executed 3 kills in rapid succession, blade through chest, bullet through throat, snap kick that crushed a helmet and the skull beneath. An Inquisitor managed to land a force push that sent the Excalibur flying backward into a support pillar. The impact would have pulverized human bones. The Warframe's reinforced frame absorbed it, mag-locked to the pillar, then launched forward with thrusters firing, turning defensive blow into offensive acceleration. The collision took the Inquisitor in the center mass at sufficient velocity to rupture organs even through armor. They fell, blood leaking from helmet seals. 6 left. They changed tactics, spreading out to prevent another radial blind from affecting multiple targets. Intelligent adaptation. It wouldn't save them. The Excalibur holstered the Lex Prime and drew a secondary weapon the Operator had kept in reserve, a bolter, its design language matching the organic mechanical aesthetic of all Tenno gear. The weapon fired rocket-propelled bolts designed to punch through heavy armor and pin targets to surfaces. The first bolt caught an Inquisitor in the shoulder and carried them backward into the hangar wall, where the projectile's penetrator spike anchored them like an insect in a collection. They struggled for 3 seconds before blood loss ended resistance. The bolter's report was distinctive, a rapid-fire thunk-thunk-thunk that filled the hangar with the sound of hypersonic metal meeting flesh. 2 more Inquisitors fell in rapid succession, their enhanced reflexes insufficient to dodge projectiles that accelerated after leaving the barrel. 3 Inquisitors remained. They'd reached the logical conclusion that conventional assault was failing and changed approach entirely. All 3 began channeling force lightning simultaneously, coordinated strikes designed to overwhelm the Warframe's shields through sustained electrical bombardment. The Excalibur's shields flared as megajoules of dark side energy lanced across the distance. The Warframe staggered, systems reporting critical shield depletion. The Operator felt the strain through transference, not pain exactly, but feedback that suggested imminent system failure. This was the moment Darth Sidious had calculated. The moment when the Tenno would be forced to either retreat into the orbiter or unleash void energy at full power despite the dimensional instability risks. The Operator chose a third option. The Excalibur dropped the bolter and raised both hands. But instead of channeling void energy outward in an attack, the Warframe began pulling, using principles the Sith had never encountered because they existed outside force physics entirely. Void energy didn't just manipulate matter and energy. It manipulated probability, quantum states, the fundamental uncertainty that underlay reality. The force lightning continued. But its targeting vectors began to shift. Probability curves that should have guaranteed hits suddenly developed quantum uncertainties. Bolts that should have struck the Excalibur instead veered microscopically off course, missing by centimeters that might as well have been kilometers. The Inquisitors poured more power into their attack, drawing deeper on the dark side. The lightning intensified, and still couldn't land a definitive strike. Reality itself seemed to be rejecting their targeting solutions. "What is this?" one Inquisitor screamed, their voice distorted by rage and confusion. "What are you?" "Something your master didn't account for," the Operator replied. Then they released the probability manipulation and converted that stored void energy into a different application. /. The Excalibur vanished, not teleported, not moved faster than perception, but briefly phased through a different dimensional layer where distance worked differently. The Warframe reappeared behind all three Inquisitors in less than a second, leaving a trail of disrupted reality in its wake. The three dark side users stood frozen for a moment, confusion visible in their body language. Then they fell simultaneously, bisected by strikes that had occurred in a space where their armor and force defenses simply didn't exist. Silence returned to the hangar. 12 bodies. 0 survivors. The Excalibur stood among the carnage, its armor scored by blaster burns and lightning marks, but fundamentally intact. Ordis, damage assessment. Shields at 17%, regenerating. Hull integrity at 91%. No critical systems damage. Operator, you've demonstrated why the Tenno are feared across the origin system. Also, glorious slaughter, magnificent, the force-dampening field just collapsed. The Jedi will be here in approximately 30 seconds. The Operator had 30 seconds to make a decision that would define their future in this galaxy. Stay and explain the massacre, justifiable self-defense but alarming in its efficiency. Or leave immediately, becoming a fugitive but maintaining operational independence. In the somatic chamber, the Operator's physical body bled from the nose again, void energy use in this galaxy exacted increasing costs. The dimensional strain was building. Ordis's calculations suggested that extensive void manipulation would eventually cause catastrophic consequences. But what choice existed when enemies wielding force lightning attacked with lethal intent? The decision crystallized: stay. The Jedi needed to understand what the Operator was capable of, and running would only confirm suspicions that the Tenno were uncontrollable threats. The hangar doors burst open 27 seconds later. Anakin Skywalker led the response team, his lightsaber ignited, his expression transforming from combat-ready to horrified as he took in the scene. Behind him came Mace Windu, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and a squad of temple guards. What happened here? Windu demanded, his voice tight with controlled fury. The Excalibur gestured calmly at the bodies. Inquisitors. 12 of them. They deployed a force-dampening field to isolate this area, then attempted to breach the orbiter with plasma cutters. I engaged in self-defense. Self-defense, Windu repeated, his gaze sweeping across 12 corpses that told a story of overwhelming superiority rather than desperate survival. You killed 12 force sensitives in under 5 minutes. 4 minutes, 37 seconds, the Operator corrected. And they weren't just force sensitives. They were trained Sith assassins using dark side enhancement. If I'd given them the opportunity to coordinate fully, the engagement would have been more difficult. Obi-Wan Kenobi stepped forward, his expression troubled but analytical. Inquisitors operating in the heart of the Jedi Temple. That shouldn't be possible. The security measures alone should have prevented. He stopped, realization dawning. Unless someone with high-level access deliberately created blind spots in our defenses. Palpatine, Anakin said quietly, the name carrying weight that made other Jedi shift uncomfortably. We have no proof the Chancellor is involved, Windu said sharply, though his tone suggested he harbored similar suspicions. But this attack confirms our fears. The Operator represents a prize valuable enough that Sith resources are being committed to capture or elimination. Which means staying here puts everyone in danger, the Operator concluded. I'm a target. Remaining in the temple makes the temple a battlefield. Leaving makes you vulnerable, Kenobi countered. Without Jedi protection, every bounty hunter, Sith agent, and Separatist commando in the galaxy will hunt you. They're already hunting me. The difference is whether I lead them away from civilians or let them attack in population centers. The Excalibur turned toward the Orbiter. I appreciate the Jedi Council's assistance with the archives. But it's clear my presence here creates more problems than it solves. Wait. Anakin stepped forward, his expression determined. There's another option. You need protection and resources. The Republic military can provide both. Come with me to the front lines, not as a prisoner or weapon, but as an independent contractor. You help with operations against the Separatists, we provide intelligence support for your dimensional research. Mutual benefit. The operator felt the trap closing. Anakin's offer sounded reasonable, but accepting meant becoming entangled in this galaxy's war. Meant choosing sides. Meant abandoning neutrality. But the alternative, operating completely alone in hostile territory while dimensional instability worsened, might be equally untenable. Define help with operations, the operator said carefully. Tactical support. High-value target elimination. Rescue missions. The kind of work Tenno apparently specialize in. Anakin's voice carried earnest conviction. You'd have operational autonomy. No direct Republic command structure. Just mission parameters and objective-based cooperation. And when those missions conflict with Tenno principles? When the Republic asks me to do something that crosses lines I won't cross. Then you refuse. I won't lie. Some Republic officers will push boundaries. But I give you my word as a Jedi that I'll respect your limits. You're not a slave to Republic interests. You're a free agent who happens to share some tactical goals. Mace Windu's expression suggested profound disagreement with Anakin's offer, but he remained silent. Perhaps because the alternative, trying to contain or control the Tenno by force, had just been demonstrated to be lethally inadvisable. The operator processed probabilities. Accepting meant limited engagement in the Clone Wars. Refusing meant complete isolation in a hostile galaxy. Both options carried risks. Both had potential benefits. In the Origin system, the Tenno had learned that pure neutrality was a luxury few could afford. Sometimes you chose the lesser evil. Sometimes you made temporary alliances to survive long enough to achieve primary objectives. Trial basis, the operator decided. 3 operations. If the cooperation works, we continue. If not, I go my own way and you don't attempt to stop me. Those are my terms. Anakin extended his hand, a very human gesture that the Excalibur matched after a moment's hesitation. Deal. Welcome to the 501st Legion, Operator. Unofficially. As they shook, neither noticed the holographic recorder hidden in the hangar's upper rafters, capturing every moment of the negotiation. The recording transmitted automatically to an encrypted relay, then cascaded through the Republic's intelligence network until it reached the Senate building. In his office, Chancellor Palpatine, Darth Sidious, watched the footage with cold calculation. The Inquisitor assault had failed, but it had achieved the true objective, forcing the Tenno into a position where they'd accept Republic military attachment. Now the operator would be trackable, predictable, deployable. And when Order 66 finally executed, when the Jedi were purged and the Republic became an empire, the Tenno would find themselves suddenly alone in a galaxy ruled by the Sith. Sidious smiled. Every piece was moving exactly as foreseen. Soon, the grand plan would achieve completion. And any remaining variables, dimensional travelers included, would be eliminated or subjugated. The dark side of the Force coiled through Coruscant's foundations, patient and inexorable as a black hole's gravity well. The Resolute hung in orbit above Ryloth like a dagger pointed at the planet's heart. Anakin's flagship had seen dozens of battles across the Clone Wars, its hull bearing scars from Separatist turbolasers and its crew carrying the efficient confidence of veterans who'd survived impossible odds. The operator watched through the Excalibur's optics as the orbiter docked with the Star Destroyer's hangar bay, noting the strategic positioning of point defense cannons and the organized chaos of clone troopers preparing for deployment. "Lot of firepower," the operator observed. "Ryloth's strategic value is significant," Anakin explained, standing beside the Warframe in the orbiter's cockpit. "The Separatists have enslaved the Twi'lek population and are using the planet as a staging ground for Outer Rim operations. We've been trying to liberate it for weeks, but their defenses are entrenched. That's where you come in." The mission briefing took place in the Resolute's war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing Ryloth's surface and the Separatist defensive positions. Clone Commander Cody presented the tactical situation with military precision while Captain Rex, Anakin's right hand, studied the Excalibur with barely concealed curiosity. "The primary objective is this plasma bridge," Cody indicated a structure spanning a massive canyon on Ryloth's surface. "It's the only viable route to the Separatist command center. But it's defended by 4 quad-laser turrets, 3 battalions of battle droids, and at least 2 tactical droids coordinating defense patterns. Every assault we've attempted has been repelled with heavy casualties." "You want me to take the bridge," the operator stated flatly. "We want you to do what you do best," Anakin corrected. "Infiltrate. Eliminate key assets. Create an opening for the main assault. Think of it as a Tenno mission, high-value targets, minimal collateral, maximum impact." The operator studied the tactical display. The defensive layout was sophisticated but predictable, overlapping fields of fire, redundant systems, prepared fallback positions. Effective against conventional assault but vulnerable to unconventional infiltration. A standard mission profile by Origin system standards. "I'll need detailed schematics of the bridge structure, real-time satellite feeds, and extraction coordinates in case the operation goes wrong." "Already prepared," Rex said, transmitting data to the orbiter's systems. "We've also prepared ARC trooper support if you need backup. I work alone." With respect, Rex's voice carried the carefully neutral tone of a soldier disagreeing with a superior. "You've never operated in this theater before. The terrain is hostile, communications are spotty, and Separatist forces adapt quickly to new threats. Having extraction assets on standby isn't backup, it's survival protocol." The operator considered this. Rex made valid tactical points. Pride was a luxury, and accepting support didn't mean accepting control. "Fine. Extraction assets on standby. But they maintain minimum safe distance unless I specifically request intervention." "Agreed," Anakin said. "When can you deploy?" "Immediately. The longer we wait, the more time they have to adjust defenses." 30 minutes later, the orbiter descended toward Ryloth's surface under full stealth protocols. The planet's russet landscape stretched beneath them, arid mesas, deep canyons, and the occasional settlement showing signs of Separatist occupation. The Excalibur stood in the deployment bay, checking weapons and running final system diagnostics while Ordis provided navigation updates. "Approaching insertion point, operator. Separatist sensor coverage suggests a 15-second window for deployment. After that, they'll detect the orbiter regardless of stealth measures." "Understood. Beginning deployment sequence." The hatch opened to reveal Ryloth's atmosphere rushing past at 300 km per hour. The Excalibur stepped into empty air without hesitation, directional thrusters firing to control descent. Below, the plasma bridge glowed against the darkening sky, an elegant energy construct spanning 2 kilometers of canyon that would have been beautiful if not for the military hardware bristling along its length. The Warframe sensors locked onto the nearest quad-laser turret. Initial target acquired. Mission parameters: eliminate defensive emplacements, neutralize command structure, create breach for Republic assault. Acceptable collateral damage, minimal. Rules of engagement: hostile combatants only. Standard Tenno operation. The Excalibur landed on a mesa 300 meters from the bridge, boots absorbing the impact with barely a sound. Immediately, the Warframe's active camouflage engaged, not true invisibility, but sensor-disrupting stealth that made targeting extremely difficult. The operator began moving toward the first objective with methodical patience. A patrol of B-1 battle droids crossed the approach vector, their photoreceptors scanning mechanically. The Excalibur remained motionless against a rock outcropping, waiting for the patrol to pass. Stealth kills would be preferable to alerts at this stage. Once the patrol moved beyond visual range, the Warframe sprinted forward in complete silence, covering 50 meters in seconds. The quad laser turret loomed ahead, an automated weapons platform with overlapping sensor coverage and armored housing designed to resist conventional explosives. The operator didn't use conventional explosives. The Excalibur scaled the turret support structure with spider-like agility, reaching the housing's maintenance panel in under 10 seconds. The scanner's edge sliced through the access lock with molecular precision, and the Warframe's hand interfaced directly with the turret's control system. Not hacking, the technology was too alien for direct hacking, but a cruder approach. The operator triggered a feedback loop in the turret's power systems, then withdrew as capacitors began overloading. The turret exploded with satisfying finality 30 seconds later. One down, free to go. The explosion triggered immediate response, battle droids converging from multiple directions, tactical droids analyzing threat vectors, and communications chatter increasing across Separatist frequencies. The operator had perhaps 90 seconds before the element of surprise evaporated completely. The Excalibur abandoned stealth and moved to open assault. The bolter spoke first, rocket-propelled bolts tearing through droid formations with devastating efficiency. B-1 units shattered under the impact, their mass-produced armor offering no protection against penetrators designed to punch through reinforced corpus hulls. A B-2 super battle droid absorbed 3 hits before its central processor sparked and failed. The second turret opened fire, tracking the Warframe's position with mechanical precision. The Excalibur's enhanced reflexes barely kept ahead of the laser barrage, rolling, sliding, using the terrain itself as cover while closing distance. At 50 meters, the operator triggered /dash. The dimensional phase shift carried the Warframe through the turret's defensive perimeter and deposited them directly on the platform. The scanner's edge found the power coupling before defensive systems could reorient. The turret died with a cascade of sparks and the distinctive whine of catastrophic energy discharge. 2 down. But now the entire defensive network was fully alert. Operator. Ordis's voice crackled through the transference link. Separatist command is deploying droidekas, 12 units converging on your position. Also detecting an energy signature that matches, oh this is bad, that matches a vulture droid squadron launching from the command center. Droidekas. Shield-equipped, rapid-fire capable, tactically sophisticated hunter-killers that had destroyed entire clone battalions. The operator's tactical database flagged them as severe threats requiring either overwhelming firepower or precision exploitation of their movement vulnerabilities. The first droideka rolled into position 30 meters away, unfolding from transport configuration to combat stance in under 2 seconds. Its twin blasters spun up while defensive shields shimmered into existence. A walking fortress that could lay down suppressing fire measured in hundreds of bolts per minute. The Excalibur moved before it could achieve full firing rate. Not away, toward. The Warframe sprinted directly at the droideka while its shields were still establishing full integrity, dove into a slide that carried beneath the angle of its primary weapons, and triggered a radial javelin ability the operator had been conserving for exactly this situation. Void energy lanced outward in directed spears of impossible physics, not force lightning, not plasma, but weaponized quantum uncertainty that existed in dimensions the droideka's shields weren't designed to deflect. The construct's shields failed, then its chassis, then its core processor. It collapsed in a heap of sparking components. 11 more to go. And the operator could feel the strain, each significant void energy use in this galaxy extracted cost. The dimensional fabric here actively resisted such manipulation, creating feedback that manifested as physical stress through transference. Ordis, requesting tactical options. Processing. Operator, the remaining quad laser turrets have interlocking fields of fire that make conventional approach impossible. However, I'm detecting a structural weakness in the bridge's eastern support pylon. If compromised, it would create a cascade failure in defensive positioning while maintaining bridge integrity for Republic forces. Collateral assessment. Minimal. The pylon is purely structural support for defensive emplacements. Destroying it won't endanger civilian populations or cause uncontrolled bridge collapse. Target confirmed. Plotting approach. The remaining droidekas were converging, their shield generators already active and weapons hot. The Excalibur couldn't afford to engage 11 shield-protected targets simultaneously, even Tenno capabilities had limits. Which meant changing the battlefield. The Warframe produced a device from its equipment cache, a Castana's mine, magnetic adhesion charge designed for demolition work. The operator's throw sent it arcing toward the eastern pylon while simultaneously drawing both the Lex Prime and Bolter in a devastating display of ambidextrous marksmanship. The Bolter suppressed advancing B-1 units while the Lex Prime targeted droideka shield generators with armor-piercing rounds. The specialized ammunition couldn't penetrate the shields directly, but repeated impacts on the same shield quadrant created cumulative stress fractures. On the third shot, one shield generator failed catastrophically, leaving the droideka vulnerable. The Scana took its head with clinical precision. 10 droidekas remaining. The Castana's mine reached the pylon and magnetically adhered. The operator triggered detonation remotely while already sprinting toward the third quad laser turret. The explosion was precisely calculated, enough force to shear support connections without causing total structural failure. The eastern defensive platform tilted 15 degrees, sending turrets offline and disrupting droideka formation cohesion. Tactical advantage, achieved. The Excalibur exploited the chaos ruthlessly. Void-enhanced speed carried the Warframe through the disrupted formation, the Scana weaving patterns of molecular destruction that left droideka components scattered across the bridge surface. 3 more fell before the survivors could re-establish formation. 7 left. And the Vulture droids were incoming. The operator felt the dimensional strain intensifying, each void manipulation, each enhanced movement, each reality-bending technique extracted incremental cost. In the somatic chamber, blood trickled from the operator's ears now, not just the nose. The force itself was pushing back against the Tenno's presence, trying to expel the foreign element. But the mission required completion. Retreat wasn't acceptable. The operator had agreed to 3 operations for the Republic. Failure on the first would undermine any future cooperation and leave them isolated in hostile territory. Pain was temporary. Mission failure was unacceptable. The 4th quad laser turret fell to a sustained bolter barrage that emptied the weapon's magazine but achieved objective. The remaining droidekas attempted to form defensive perimeter, but the Excalibur was already among them, too close for their weapons to track effectively, moving with speed that made targeting solutions impossible to maintain. The Scana sang its molecular song through droideka chassis. 5 left. 3. 1. The final unit managed a desperate transmission before the operator's blade found its core. Unknown hostile has breached primary defenses. All units converge. Silence. The Vulture droids screamed overhead, their wings cutting through Rylotha's atmosphere with predatory grace. The Excalibur's sensors tracked 4 units executing attack patterns designed to strafe ground targets. Each mounted dual laser cannons and concussion missile launchers, air superiority fighters that excelled at destroying anything that couldn't shoot back. The operator raised the bolter skyward and began firing, not at the lead Vulture, but calculating intercept angles and atmospheric drag to put projectiles exactly where the droids would be in 3 seconds. Leading targets was fundamental Tenno training. The first Vulture flew directly into a stream of rocket-propelled bolts that shredded its wing assembly. It spiraled into the canyon below in flames. The second attempted evasive maneuvers but ran directly into another calculated firing solution. Its cockpit exploded, and the droid became an unguided missile that impacted a mesa with spectacular force. The remaining 2 Vultures broke off, their tactical programming recognizing the threat level had been severely miscalculated. They transmitted distress signals as they retreated toward the command center. The operator didn't pursue. The primary objective was achieved, the bridge's defenses were neutralized, the path was clear for Republic assault. Mission parameters, complete. Ordis, contact Republic forces. Bridge is secured. Acknowledged, operator. Also, you're dying, your biometric readings are concerning. Transference strain is approaching critical levels. Recommend immediate extraction and recovery. The operator felt it too, the accumulated cost of extensive void energy use in a galaxy that rejected such manipulation. Vision blurring. Equilibrium unstable. Consciousness fraying at the edges. But they remained standing. Remained functional. The Excalibur's physical systems were intact, and through transference the operator could maintain operational capability despite biological stress. Negative extraction. I'm maintaining position until Republic forces secure the objective. 20 minutes later, Republic gunships descended on the bridge carrying clone battalions that swept through with professional efficiency. The Separatist forces, already demoralized by the destruction of their defensive network, collapsed quickly. Within an hour, the bridge was fully secured and Republic control extended to the command center approach. Anakin Skywalker found the Excalibur sitting on the remains of a destroyed quad-laser turret, motionless, conserving energy. Operator? You still with us? Functional. Mission complete. Defensive emplacements neutralized. Bridge secured with minimal structural damage. Minimal? Anakin looked around at the carnage, destroyed droids, smoking turret wreckage, scorch marks from void-enhanced combat. You took on an entire defensive battalion solo and won. That's not minimal, that's extraordinary. It was adequate performance within expected parameters. The Excalibur stood, movement slightly less fluid than usual. The droidekas presented complications, but their shield technology proved vulnerable to sustained kinetic penetration and directed void energy. The tactical database has been updated with countermeasures. Anakin studied the Warframe carefully. Something was wrong, the operator's usual precise articulation carried subtle strain, and the biomechanical form seemed to require more concentration to control. Are you injured? Transference strain. Void energy use in this galaxy exacts cumulative cost. I'll require recovery time before the next operation. Then let's get you back to the Resolute. Medical Bay can. Your medical facilities can't treat transference-related stress. I need time in the somatic chamber with orbiter systems managing biometric stabilization. The Excalibur began walking toward the extraction coordinates. But the mission was successful. That's what matters. As they boarded the gunship for return to the Resolute, Anakin watched the operator with growing concern. The Tenno had delivered exactly what they'd promised: tactical superiority, mission completion, minimal Republic casualties. But the cost to the operator themselves was clearly significant, and they'd never admitted vulnerability before. 2 more operations, Anakin said quietly. Then you're free to go. I won't hold you to more than we agreed. Acknowledged. The Warframe's vocabulary carried something that might have been gratitude. And Jedi. Thank you for respecting the agreement. Not all factions honor their commitments. The gunship lifted off, carrying the Excalibur back toward orbit. Behind them, the plasma bridge stood secured, and Republic forces advanced toward liberating Rylotha's enslaved population. The first operation was complete. But across the galaxy, in the shadows of Coruscant Senate building, Darth Sidious reviewed combat footage of the Tenno's performance with cold satisfaction. The operator was powerful, yes. Dangerous, certainly. But also clearly straining under the dimensional incompatibility. Vulnerable. Soon, Sidious whispered to the darkness. Soon the pieces will align. And then, young Tenno, you'll discover what happens when you play games in a Sith Lord's galaxy. The distress signal came from a remote research station in the Outer Rim, a classified Republic facility conducting experiments the Jedi Council wasn't fully briefed on. When the transmission cut off mid-sentence and the station's defensive systems registered massive internal breaches, the Republic dispatched the nearest available asset. That asset was the Excalibur. The operator had spent 3 days in the somatic chamber recovering from the Ryloth operation, allowing transfer and strain to heal and biometric readings to stabilize. Ordis had monitored constantly, his fragmented personality cycling between concern and bloodthirsty encouragement. By the time the distress call arrived, the operator was functional again, diminished from full capacity but operational within acceptable parameters. The station's called Meridian 7, Anakin explained over secure holographic transmission. It's supposed to be researching advanced weapons technology for the Republic military. But the personnel roster is classified above my clearance level, which means something sensitive is happening there. The distress call mentioned a containment breach before it cut off. Containment of what? The operator asked, already running the orbiter's course toward the coordinates. Unknown. That's why I'm sending you instead of a full battalion. If it's a biological hazard or experimental technology gone wrong, you're better equipped to handle it than clone troopers. Plus, your dimensional abilities might be necessary if this is related to spatial anomalies. The operator felt a chill of recognition. Containment breach. Experimental technology. Spatial anomalies. In the Origin system, those words usually meant one thing: infested outbreak or void-contaminated research. Both scenarios ended with entire facilities sterilized and survivors quarantined. Rules of engagement. Rescue any survivors. Secure research data if possible. If the situation's beyond salvage, destroy the facility to prevent Separatist acquisition. Anakin's expression was grim. And operator? Be careful. Something about this feels wrong. The orbiter dropped out of hyperspace near Meridian 7 3 hours later. The research station hung in orbit above a lifeless moon, its modular design suggesting military construction rather than civilian science. But something was immediately wrong. Massive hull breaches scored the exterior, the station's lights flickered erratically, and no automated defenses challenged the approaching vessel. Ordis, scan for life signs. Scanning. Operator, I'm detecting 47 biological signatures aboard. But the readings are wrong, anomalous. Some signatures are partially organic, partially mechanical. Others don't register as any species in the database. And there's something else, a spatial distortion in the station's central core. The dimensional fabric is damaged. The operator's tactical assessment turned cold. Dimensional damage meant someone had been experimenting with forces they didn't understand. Forces similar to the Void, perhaps, or attempting to replicate spatial manipulation without proper containment protocols. Ordis, prepare quarantine protocols. If this is dimensional contamination, we may need to prevent spread. The Excalibur deployed via boarding tube, mag-locking to Meridian 7's hull and cutting through an emergency hatch. The interior was a nightmare of twisted metal and organic corruption. Surfaces that should have been clean durasteel were covered in pulsing growths that resembled technicite infestation from the Origin system. Emergency lighting cast everything in sickly red illumination, and the air filtration systems wheezed with labored effort. By the Void, the operator whispered. They were studying infestation. But how? The infested were unique to the Origin system, the result of Orokin bioweapons research gone catastrophically wrong. There shouldn't be anything similar in this galaxy unless someone had found samples. Brought them through the same dimensional breach that had carried the operator here. Or worse, attempted to recreate infested principles using local organisms and force-based corruption. The Excalibur's sensors detected movement ahead, shambling figures that had once been human but now were twisted amalgamations of flesh and technology. Their faces were barely recognizable beneath layers of corruption, and their moans carried the distinctive harmonics of infested vocal patterns. Survivors was the wrong word. These were victims. The first infected charged with unnatural speed, its body warped by mutagenic transformation into something designed for violence. The operator's response was immediate. The Lex Prime fired once, the armor-piercing round punching through the creature's skull and ending its suffering. More came. Dozens. They poured from side corridors and access shafts, driven by the infested's singular purpose: spread, consume, corrupt. The Excalibur's bolter spoke in rapid staccato bursts, each projectile finding targets with machine precision. Bodies fell, but more replaced them. Ordis, I need containment analysis. How far has the corruption spread? Processing. Operator, the infection has compromised 73% of the station. The spatial distortion in the central core appears to be the source. Some kind of dimensional tear is actively leaking corrupting energy. If not sealed, it will continue generating infested indefinitely. The operator pushed deeper into the station, fighting through waves of corrupted personnel. Some showed signs of recent transformation, still partially recognizable, still wearing remnants of Republic uniforms. Others were fully consumed, barely humanoid anymore. The operator killed them all with clinical efficiency and quiet grief. These people hadn't deserved this. Hadn't chosen corruption. They'd been victims of someone's ambition, someone's reckless experimentation with forces beyond comprehension. The station's central core was a spherical chamber designed for zero-gravity research. At its center, suspended in containment fields that flickered and failed intermittently, was a tear in reality itself. The wound looked exactly like void rifts from the origin system, a wound in spacetime that bled impossible energies and warped everything around it with mutagenic radiation. And standing before it, protected by containment armor and force barriers, was a figure the operator recognized from intelligence briefings. Count Dooku. Ah, the Tenno, Dooku said, his cultured voice carrying across the chamber despite the howling dimensional breach. I wondered if the Republic would send you. How appropriate, a dimensional traveler investigating dimensional catastrophe. You did this. The operator's voice carried cold fury. You created this breach, unleashed this corruption, and killed everyone on this station. Not created, discovered. Dooku gestured toward the rift. When you arrived in our galaxy, you left traces. Quantum signatures that could be tracked by those with proper equipment and force sensitivity. I followed those traces backward, seeking to understand the nature of your void energy. And I found this, a weak point in dimensional fabric, a place where your origin system nearly touches ours. So you tore it open. So I studied it. Attempted to harness the energies I found there. Dooku's expression remained calm, almost professorial. The corruption was unexpected. Your origin system apparently contains biological weapons of extraordinary virulence. But also extraordinary potential. Imagine the Separatist cause empowered by warriors who cannot truly die, who spread like a plague across Republic space. The Excalibur's hand went to the scanner. You're insane. The infested don't serve anyone. They consume everything. Your Separatist alliance, the Republic, every living thing in this galaxy, none of it would matter to the Technocyte plague. You'd destroy both sides of your war. Then we must ensure the plague remains controlled. Dooku's lightsaber ignited with its distinctive curved hilt and crimson blade. Which brings us to the crux of the matter, you possess knowledge of how to seal such breaches, how to contain such corruption. Knowledge I require. Surrender that information, and I'll allow you to leave this station alive. Or I kill you, seal the breach myself, and sterilize this facility before the corruption spreads further. Dooku smiled. You're welcome to try. The duel that followed was fundamentally different from the Inquisitor engagement. Dooku was a Sith Lord, a master of Form 2 Makashi, the dueling style designed for lightsaber combat against single opponents. He moved with elegant precision, each strike calculated to exploit openings while defending against counterattacks. And his connection to the Force was immense, allowing precognition that warned of attacks before they materialized. But the operator had fought enemies who adapted to every technique. Had survived duels with beings who existed partially outside linear time. Had learned that power meant nothing without the will to use it absolutely. The Excalibur engaged with controlled ferocity, the Scanna's molecular edge meeting Dooku's lightsaber in cascades of sparks and impossible physics. The Sith Lord's precognition struggled against an opponent who existed partially outside the Force. The operator's void-enhanced nature created blind spots in future sight, moments where prediction failed and reaction became insufficient. Dooku unleashed Force lightning, channeling dark side energy that would have crippled most opponents. The Excalibur's shields absorbed the assault while the operator channeled void energy in response, not attacking, but creating localized probability distortions that made the lightning's targeting increasingly uncertain. Fascinating, Dooku breathed, sweat beginning to show despite his control. You're not defending against the Force, you're making reality itself uncertain. Quantum manipulation at the macro scale. No wonder the Jedi find you disturbing. The Excalibur pressed the attack, movements flowing between Tenno combat forms and improvised adaptations to lightsaber combat. The Scanna couldn't sustain prolonged blade locks against plasma edges, so the operator avoided direct clashes, using deflection, evasion, and rapid strike-and-retreat patterns that prevented Dooku from establishing rhythm. But the Sith Lord was adapting. His precognition was learning to account for the operator's quantum uncertainty, finding patterns in the chaos. And the dimensional tear behind them was worsening. The containment fields Dooku had established were failing, and infested corruption spread across the chamber's surfaces like cancer. Ordis, the operator commanded through transference. Containment Protocol Gamma. Prepare the orbiter for vacuum sterilization procedures. Operator, that protocol requires, beautiful purging fire, requires you to be outside the blast radius. You're still in the station. Execute on my mark. I'll create my own exit. The operator triggered a gambit that would either end the fight or end them. The Excalibur dropped all defensive posture, committed fully to a slash-dash that phase-shifted through Dooku's guard, and drove the Scanna toward the Sith Lord's heart. Dooku's precognition screamed warning. His lightsaber interposed at the last microsecond, deflecting the blade from lethal trajectory to merely wounding, the Scanna's edge carved through his left shoulder instead of his chest. The Count staggered, pain breaking his concentration, and his force grip on the containment systems faltered. The dimensional tear expanded catastrophically. Reality screamed. The chamber's walls warped as void energy and force corruption mixed in ways that should have been impossible. Infested growths erupted with accelerated growth, consuming everything they touched. And the breach itself began pulling matter inward, not gravity, but dimensional collapse threatening to swallow the entire station. Ordis, now. The orbiter's weapons systems engaged from extreme range, plasma bombardment calculated to puncture the station's hull and vent atmosphere in controlled decompression. The Excalibur sprinted toward the nearest hull breach while behind them Dooku struggled to seal his wound with force-enhanced healing. The operator triggered one final void technique, spending reserves they couldn't afford, accepting transference strain that would leave them incapacitated for days. The Excalibur's form blurred, existing in quantum superposition across multiple potential trajectories, then collapsed into the single reality where they cleared the station's hull before decompression killed them. The Warframe tumbled into space as Meridian 7's core detonated. Not nuclear, dimensional. The breach collapsed inward on itself, consuming the station and everything aboard in a cascade of imploding spacetime. The infested corruption, the research data, Count Dooku if he hadn't escaped, all of it vanished into a singularity that existed for 3 seconds before sealing with a flash of void energy. The orbiter's tractor beam caught the Excalibur and pulled the Warframe aboard. In the somatic chamber, the operator's physical body convulsed, blood streaming from nose and ears and eyes. Transference connection degraded to critical levels. Consciousness fraying. Operator. Operator, stay with me. I'm initiating emergency medical protocols. Please don't leave me alone, just hold on. The operator's last coherent thought before unconsciousness took them was mission completion, contamination contained, dimensional breach sealed, threat neutralized. The cost was irrelevant. The mission was everything. Days later, 3. 4. Time lost meaning in recovery. The operator woke in the somatic chamber with Anakin Skywalker's concerned face hovering nearby. The Jedi had somehow boarded the orbiter, bypassing security protocols that should have been impenetrable. "Ordis let me in," Anakin explained, noting the operator's confusion. He was concerned. "Said you weren't waking up. What happened out there?" The operator's voice was raw, damaged. "Dooku. Dimensional experiment. Infested outbreak. I sealed the breach and sterilized the station. Total loss. The survivors. There were no survivors. Only victims." The operator's young face showed ancient grief. "The corruption was too advanced. I killed them to save them from worse." Anakin was silent for a long moment. "The Republic's investigation confirmed your report. They found quantum signature residue matching your description of dimensional collapse. They also found evidence that Dooku had been conducting unauthorized research for months." He paused. "You saved millions, maybe billions. If that corruption had spread to populated systems." "2 operations complete," the operator said quietly. "One remains on our agreement." "About that?" Anakin's expression turned troubled. "After what you've been through, no one would fault you for walking away. You've proven yourself. Exceeded every expectation. The debt's paid, as far as I'm concerned. I honor commitments, Jedi. One more operation. Then we're done." Anakin nodded slowly, respecting the decision even as he worried about its cost. "Then rest. Recover. Because the 3rd operation, it's going to be the hardest yet." The final operation was supposed to be simple extraction, a Republic senator captured by Separatists on Nal Hutta, the Hutt homeworld where both sides maintained tenuous neutrality through bribery and threat. Anakin had framed it as low-risk reconnaissance with minimal combat probability. The operator had accepted because the agreement demanded completion, and Tenno honored their commitments. But simple operations never stayed simple. The operator had learned that lesson across centuries of missions in the Origin system. The intelligence was wrong from the start. The senator wasn't just captured, she was bait. And the Separatists weren't the only hunters waiting. The Excalibur moved through Nal Hutta's industrial sectors with practiced stealth, following intelligence that placed Senator Amidala in a warehouse district controlled by the Hutt cartel. The planet's perpetual smog and acidic rain provided natural concealment, and the Warframe's enhanced sensors cut through environmental interference with ease. "Ordis, confirm target location." Scanning. "Operator, the Senator's biosignature is present in the primary warehouse structure. But I'm also detecting approximately 40 additional life signs. Republic intelligence suggested minimal guard presence. This appears to be trap, significantly more opposition than briefed." The operator had suspected as much. The mission parameters had felt wrong from the beginning, too convenient, too perfectly aligned with Tenno capabilities. Someone wanted the Excalibur deployed to this specific location at this specific time. The question was, why? The warehouse's exterior showed no obvious security, which itself was a warning sign. The operator approached the main entrance and found it unsealed, practically an invitation. Through the Warframe's enhanced hearing, voices carried from inside. Multiple species, several speaking Basic, others in languages the orbiter's translation matrix struggled to parse. The Excalibur entered to find not a simple guard detail, but a conference. 20 figures surrounded a holographic display showing tactical projections of Republic fleet movements. Some wore Separatist uniforms. Others displayed Hutt cartel insignias. And at the center, orchestrating the discussion with calm authority, stood a figure whose presence made the Force itself feel heavy with malevolence. Chancellor Palpatine. But not as the operator had seen him in Republic intelligence briefings, this version wore the trappings of his true nature. Sith robes. Eyes that burned with yellow intensity. And an aura of dark side power that made even the Excalibur sensors register environmental distortion. Darth Sidious. "Ah, the Tenno arrives," Sidious said, his voice carrying across the warehouse with unnatural clarity. "Precisely on schedule. I do appreciate punctuality in my enemies." The operator's tactical assessment shifted instantly. Not a rescue operation. Not even a simple ambush. This was a carefully orchestrated revelation, Sidious exposing his true nature to the one witness who existed partially outside the Force's influence, who couldn't be easily manipulated or controlled through conventional Sith methods. "Where's the Senator?" the operator demanded, the Excalibur's hand moving to the scanner's hilt. "Safe in Republic custody, I imagine. The intelligence that brought you here was fabricated, though I suspect you'd already deduced that." Sidious gestured casually, and the holographic display shifted to show the Excalibur's current position. "You see, young operator, you've presented a unique problem for my plans. A variable that exists outside the carefully balanced equation I've spent decades constructing. The Force flows around you like water around stone. Precognition struggles to account for your actions. And your void energy interferes with dark side techniques in most inconvenient ways. So you're eliminating the variable. I'm offering you a choice." Sidious's smile was predatory. "You want to return to your origin system. I can make that happen. My research into dimensional phenomena has progressed far beyond anything the Jedi archives contain. I know how to create a stable breach large enough for your orbiter to transit. I can send you home, operator. All you need to do is walk away from this galaxy's conflicts and never interfere with my plans again." The operator processed this with cold calculation. Sidious was offering exactly what the Tenno mission required, a path home, free from entanglement in galactic politics. And yet, the offer came from someone who'd orchestrated a multi-decade conspiracy to transform a republic into an empire, who'd been willing to unleash infested corruption for tactical advantage, who represented everything the Tenno opposed. "And if I refuse? Then you die here. Now. Surrounded by 20 of my most capable assets, facing a Sith Lord who's had weeks to prepare countermeasures specifically for your abilities. Your void energy is powerful, yes. But this galaxy actively rejects it. Every use strains you further. How much do you have left, I wonder? How many more times can you phase through reality before your body fails entirely?" The operator felt the truth in those words. The transference strain hadn't fully healed from Meridian 7. The dimensional incompatibility was worsening. And Sidious was right, extensive void manipulation in this galaxy was slowly killing them. But walking away meant abandoning Anakin, abandoning the Republic despite its flaws, abandoning billions to Sith tyranny. It meant choosing survival over principle. It meant ceasing to be Tenno. "Ordis," the operator commanded through encrypted neural link. "Emergency Protocol Black. Transmit all intelligence on Sidious's true identity to Jedi Temple, Republic Intelligence, and every major information network you can access. Everything we've recorded. Everything we know. Operator, that will reveal our position to every hostile faction in the sector. It's glorious defiance, it's tactical suicide. Execute." The transmission pulsed outward before Sidious could react, quantum-encrypted data packets flooding through hyperspace relays carrying one message: Chancellor Palpatine is Darth Sidious. The Sith Lord orchestrating both sides of the Clone Wars. Proof included. Sidious's expression transformed from confident superiority to genuine rage. "You fool. You've condemned yourself for nothing. The Republic will never believe." "They will," the operator interrupted. "Because I'm not the only one who's suspected. Jedi like Windu and Yoda have felt the darkness near you. Clone intelligence has noticed statistical anomalies in your strategic decisions. You've been careful, but not perfect. And now I've given them the evidence to connect the patterns. Then you've accomplished nothing but your own death. Sidious raised his hand, force lightning already crackling between his fingers. I would have sent you home, Operator. Would have let you live. But now you'll die knowing you failed to stop what's coming. Order 66 will execute regardless. The Jedi will fall. And the Republic will become an empire under my absolute control. Maybe, the Operator acknowledged. But you'll have to work harder for it now. And maybe, just maybe, you'll fail because one-dimensional traveler chose to fight rather than flee. The battle that followed was apocalyptic. 20 elite combatants attacked in coordinated waves, Separatist commandos with advanced weapons, Hutt enforcers with heavy armor, dark side adepts channeling corrupted force techniques. The Excalibur moved through them like a storm, the Scanna and Lex Prime working in deadly harmony. But for every enemy that fell, the Operator felt the cost, void energy expenditure, transfer and strain accumulating, consciousness eroding at the edges. Sidious himself joined the assault with power that dwarfed the Inquisitors. His force lightning didn't just attack, it dominated space itself, turning the air into a weapon. His telekinetic strikes carried the weight of decades of dark side mastery. And his precognition, honed through countless battles, found patterns even in the Operator's quantum uncertainty. The Excalibur took damage, armor scored by lightning, shields depleted, systems straining. The Operator pushed harder, spending reserves that didn't exist, accepting costs that would be paid in days of agony or permanent injury. Radial blind detonated multiple times, buying precious seconds. Phase shifted through killing blows. Every Tenno technique, every tactical advantage, deployed with desperate efficiency. But it wasn't enough. Sidious's lightsaber, crimson blade humming with malevolence, found the Excalibur's shoulder, carving through armor that should have been impenetrable. The Warframe's left arm went offline, systems failing. The Operator felt feedback through transference, phantom pain from a wound that didn't exist on their physical body but registered as real in the neural connection. You fight well, Sidious acknowledged, barely winded despite the carnage around them. But you're dying, Operator. I can feel it. The dimensional rejection intensifying. Your body in that somatic chamber bleeding from every orifice. How much longer can you maintain this connection? 1 minute. 30 seconds. The Operator knew he was right. Knew that consciousness was fading, that biological systems were failing, that the Warframe would become an empty shell when transference finally collapsed. But the mission required completion. Required buying time for the intelligence to spread, for the Jedi to mobilize, for the galaxy to have a fighting chance against what Sidious represented. The Excalibur triggered one final technique, a void energy release that the Operator had been saving since arrival in this galaxy. Not an attack. Not a defense. A beacon. The dimensional breach that had brought them here had left scars in spacetime, quantum entanglement between the origin system and this galaxy. The Operator channeled every remaining fragment of void energy into resonating with that entanglement, creating a signal that would propagate backward through dimensional pathways. A signal that would tell the Lotus, tell the Tenno, tell the origin system's defenders. One of their own was stranded, was dying, was calling for help. The energy expenditure was catastrophic. The Operator's physical body in the somatic chamber went into cardiac arrest. Transference connection collapsed. And the Excalibur, suddenly empty of directing consciousness, froze mid-motion like a puppet with cut strings. Sidious approached the motionless Warframe cautiously, lightsaber ready for deception. But the biomechanical frame truly was inert now, a masterpiece of Orokin engineering rendered inoperative by the absence of its Operator. Disappointing, Sidious murmured. I would have preferred to study you further. But dead enemies are safer than living complications. He raised his lightsaber for a final strike. And the Excalibur's hand shot up, catching his wrist with grip strength that made Durasteel groan. The Warframe's optics blazed with renewed light. But the voice that spoke through the vocabulator was different. Older. Feminine. carrying authority that made even Sidious hesitate. Tenno. We have received your distress call. Extraction in progress. Hold position. The Lotus. Somehow, impossibly, the Tenno's handler had received the dimensional beacon and established remote transference connection across the gulf between universes. The Excalibur moved with the Lotus's consciousness guiding it, different combat style, different tactical priorities, but the same lethal competence. Sidious found himself suddenly on the defensive, his precognition useless against an opponent whose mind existed in another dimension entirely. What is this? Sidious snarled, unleashing full dark side power. What are you? We are Tenno, the Lotus replied through the Warframe. And we protect our own. The warehouse's roof exploded inward as the orbiter descended on emergency thrusters, its weapon systems online and targeting every hostile signature in range. Plasma bombardment cleared a perimeter while the ship's tractor beam locked onto the Excalibur. All forces, converge. Sidious commanded, but his assets were already falling back, recognizing when tactical situations became untenable. The Excalibur rocketed upward on its thrusters, pulled by the orbiter's beam, and disappeared into the ship's bay. The hatch sealed, and the vessel's stealth systems engaged as it climbed toward orbit at speeds that made Hutt cartel sensors struggle to track. Inside the somatic chamber, the operator's physical body remained unconscious, sustained by emergency medical systems. The Lotus's remote transference maintained the Warframe's basic functions while Ordis piloted the orbiter through a desperate escape trajectory. Operator status critical but stable, Ordis reported. Lotus, thank you you saved them, for the emergency intervention. The dimensional bridge is unstable, the Lotus replied, her consciousness already straining under the effort of maintaining cross-universal connection. I cannot maintain this link much longer. You must reach safe territory. Understood. Plotting course for, Ordis paused as sensors detected incoming hyperspace signatures. Multiple contacts emerging from hyperspace. Republic Star Destroyers, Separatist Dreadnoughts, and, Lotus, someone's opened another dimensional breach. It's massive. Through the Excalibur's optics, the Lotus watched reality tear open in Nal Huda's orbit. Not a small rift like the one that had brought the operator here. A massive gateway, stabilized by technology that shouldn't exist in this galaxy, anchored by energies that mixed void physics with force manipulation. And through that gateway, pouring into the Star Wars galaxy like a flood breaking through a dam, came something terrible. Sentience. Dozens of them. The Origin system's most terrifying enemy, adaptive war machines that learn from every attack, that grew stronger with each confrontation, that had nearly destroyed the Orokin Empire at the height of its power. No, the Lotus whispered. No, this is impossible. The sentients can't cross dimensional boundaries. But they were. Someone had learned enough about void physics and dimensional mechanics to create a bridge. Someone had deliberately opened a pathway for the sentients to invade a new galaxy. Darth Sidious, standing in the warehouse's ruins, watched the invasion begin and smiled. The Tenno had been a complication, yes. But also an opportunity. A teacher who demonstrated that power existed beyond the Force, that the galaxy's rules could be rewritten by those with vision and will. Let the sentients come. Let chaos engulf the Republic and Separatists alike. In the aftermath, when both sides lay exhausted and desperate, he would emerge with solutions. With control. With an empire forged from necessity rather than conquest. The grand plan adapted. The grand plan endured. And in the orbiter, fleeing toward unknown destinations with the operator unconscious and the Lotus maintaining tenuous connection, Ordis made a decision that would change everything. Lotus, I'm transmitting emergency distress call on all Tenno frequencies. The sentients are here. The galaxy needs help. We need warriors, the Lotus agreed. Ordis, open a stable dimensional pathway. Bring them through. Bring them all. Across the origin system, in hidden relays and orbital stations, Tenno received the call. A new war. A new galaxy. A fight that would require everything they'd learned across centuries of conflict. The warframes began to wake. And the Star Wars galaxy, already torn by clone wars and Sith machinations, was about to learn what happened when Tenno arrived in force, not as single scouts or diplomatic curiosities, but as an army of ancient warriors who'd ended empires and balanced entire solar systems. The collision between two realities had begun in earnest. And no one, not the Jedi, not the Sith, not the sentients themselves, could predict how it would end. The operator stirred in the somatic chamber, consciousness returning slowly. Through damaged transference, they heard the Lotus's voice. Rest, young one. You've bought us time. Now others will carry the burden. The Tenno are coming. And this galaxy will never be the same. The dimensional gateway remained open for 72 hours, long enough for 300 warframes to cross between universes, bringing with them the accumulated martial skill of centuries and the desperate hope of warriors who'd learned that survival meant adaptation. They arrived to a galaxy at war with itself, now facing invasion from entities that existed to consume technology and evolve beyond all countermeasures. The Republic and Separatists found themselves in unprecedented crisis. The Jedi Council, forced to acknowledge Sidious's treachery through overwhelming evidence, arrested the Chancellor in a confrontation that revealed the depths of Sith power. But with Order 66 exposed before execution, the clone army remained loyal, and the Jedi survived their intended purge. The sentience spread across outer rim systems like a plague of adaptive predators, learning from every engagement, growing stronger with each conquered world. They recognized no allegiance, no mercy, only the imperative to expand and evolve. And the Tenno, caught between factions they didn't fully understand, did what they'd always done. They maintained balance through selective violence, completed missions that served the greater good, and refused to become weapons for any single power. The operator recovered slowly, spending weeks in the somatic chamber while their body healed from dimensional trauma. When they finally emerged, it was to a galaxy transformed. The Clone Wars had evolved into something far more complex, a three-way conflict between Republic forces seeking stability, Separatist remnants pursuing independence, and sentient invaders threatening all organic life. But there was hope. The Jedi, humbled by their near destruction and forced to confront their own limitations, began learning from the Tenno. The clones, freed from Sith manipulation, discovered purpose beyond programming. And the galaxy's countless species found common cause against existential threat. The operator stood in the orbiter's cockpit, watching Coruscant's light stretch across the night side of the planet. Somewhere down there, Anakin Skywalker coordinated Republic Tenno joint operations. Somewhere, Obi-Wan Kenobi studied void energy techniques that might counter sentient adaptation. Somewhere, Master Yoda meditated on the nature of power that existed outside the Force itself. Ordis, the operator said quietly. Calculate probability of return to origin system. Processing. Operator, with sentient presence destabilizing dimensional barriers, probability has increased to 47%. We could potentially force passage home within 6 months. But doing so would abandon this galaxy to the sentient threat without Tenno support. Republic losses would increase by estimated 300%. Projected casualties in the billions. The operator had known the answer before asking. Known that the mission had changed, expanded beyond simple survival into something that required sacrifice. The Tenno maintained balance. Protected the innocent. Fought threats that conventional forces couldn't handle. This galaxy needed them. And perhaps, in helping it survive, the Tenno would learn new techniques, new understanding, new ways to fight the sentience that might tip the balance in the origin system as well. Plot course for the outer rim, the operator commanded. The Lotus transmitted coordinates for a sentient hive ship. We have work to do. The Excalibur moved beside them, empty but ready, a reminder of what they'd become and what they'd always be. Not heroes. Not villains. Just warriors maintaining equilibrium in systems that teetered on the edge of chaos. The orbiter's engines flared as the ship disappeared into hyperspace, carrying the operator toward another battle in a war that would reshape the galaxy. Behind them, the Force and the Void coexisted uneasily, two fundamental powers learning to share space in reality. Ahead, the sentience waited, adaptive, merciless, evolution incarnate. And somewhere between, the Tenno walked their path, neither light nor dark, guided only by the mission and the knowledge that balance was worth any price. The collision of universes had created something new. Something unprecedented. Something that would echo through both realities for generations to come. May the Force be with those who stood against the darkness. And may the Void grant strength to those who walked between worlds.